Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the San Francisco Ethics Commission. We'll begin by taking the roll. Vice Chair Rennie.
Present.
Commissioner Han.
Here.
Commissioner Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Keene.
Here.
Can I make an announcement to welcome Jeff?
Yes. The Executive Director has an announcement.
I just want to take a moment to welcome the new Deputy Director, Jesse Minardi. He brings a wealth of experience to this position, and we're delighted to have him. He has experience as both a business attorney and a political attorney. He worked at the Fair Political Practices Commission in Sacramento on the Enforcement Division. He's had a stint at Teach for America. He's a graduate of Hastings College of Law and also has a master's degree from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and a long list of accomplishments, and we're, as I said, fortunate to have him. Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Mr. Minardi, and we're fortunate to have you. Look forward to working with you. The first item on the agenda are matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission.
Commissioners, my name is Harlan Kelly, and I am the General Manager of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. Thank you for allowing me to come before you. I have a previously scheduled engagement, so I'm going to have to dash off right after my comments. But I want to talk about an item that you have, item 5 on your agenda. First of all, due to personal and confidential rules, I'm not here to talk about any specific as it relates to any disciplinary actions related to Ms. Ellis that were taken in August of 2013. However, I want the Commission to know and understand that all actions were based on exhaustive and independent PUC investigation, where we carefully weighed the facts and the mitigating circumstances. Recently, in January 2014, with your Commission and the FPPC, reached a joint settlement agreement with Ms. Ellis. Your investigation did not present any new information or contradict any information related to the PUC investigation. I cannot revisit disciplinary action that I took, nor I see any reason to do so. I believe the appropriate actions were taken on all fronts, and this matter is concluded. I hope that the Commission, as I do, that this is simply time to move on, and thank you for hearing me.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Supervisor John Avalos, and I'm here to speak on the same matter as well. I know that the Ethics Commission has already made a determination on the individual who is being discussed today. It seems like that has already been settled. I was a bit concerned to see it come up all over again, especially because I know that what penalty has been applied against the person in question has actually, I think is great and will be a burden, and I think it's representative sense of justice being carried out. I also have worked with Ms. Ellis for, a number of years, well before she was on the Public Utility Commission, and I know that she has been one who has been working diligently to support a lot of working class communities of color that often don't get the attention they need to get in the area, but in particular in San Francisco, where I have jurisdiction. And in terms of my district, she has really been making sure that the Public Utility Commission can be responsive in ways above and beyond its mission, ways that really interact with the community, make sure that there's greater opportunity for the community. She's been working with us on youth development, on employment workforce development projects, and most recently an urban agricultural project that is actually going to make a huge difference in the neighborhood around nutrition and access to food and people's participation in the neighborhood. To me, these are great values that the city holds forth, and to see someone who I think is doing some good work and really reaching out to communities of color in San Francisco is pretty frightening to me, because I think we should be making sure that folks like this are able to continue to work in the city and to make sure there's interaction with our communities that can be much greater. Thank you.
Commissioners, when the constituents of San Francisco elected y'all, they elected y'all so that y'all could pay attention to due process. Right from the inception, after what the director stated, the statements pertaining to what the director stated should be general in nature. But out of the goodness of your heart, you commissioners permitted a general manager and a supervisor, accommodated them to make some statements, which, in my subjective opinion, infringes on the real agenda item. I served my country, serving 3 generals. I worked for the United States, 6th United States Army and Presidio of San Francisco. I worked for the National Park Service, and before I retired, I worked for the United States Park Police. I understand fully conflict of interest. When we San Franciscans created this commission, we created a commission where our commissioners, our diverse commissioners, as I see, you seated, that y'all would adjudicate all matters in the proper manner. High standards. Very high standards. And as you know, on this matter, we have 1 or 2 in the audience who participated on the relevant and pertinent deliberations. We did. You commissioners today will be bombarded with statements where those stating what they're going to state will not have the empirical data, the real facts. But we are lucky, very lucky, that we have some astute commissioners who can discern, and that your heart is in the right place. This is about morals. This is about ethics. This is about standards. This is not about selling out the community and our values. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Espinola Jackson, and I was here before when this decision was done, which you had followed the state. And there was a lot of conversations concerning it. I would like to say that I live in Bayview Hunters Point. And the reason why this had came to your attention is because of the fact funds had been diverted from Bayview Hunters Point to Oakland, California, for people to be hired to come and do work in my community, but not the people that live in Bayview Hunters Point. Funds is being dwindled every place, but not in the community. And I came before and I stated I came to see if you was going to do due diligence, because if I had committed what had occurred, you would put me in jail. And I have great concerns about the fact that people don't know the facts and don't have the facts and can come up here and say how great someone is, when in my community we had to do mitigation to get a college built in my community. And what has occurred, everything that's been going on has been trying to take away the college, make the college an office building and not an educational system. And who's behind it? Julia Ellis. Every time I turn around, and I have asked the director, and if he was still here, to keep her out of my community, because I don't need her there. She have not did anything for Bayview Hunters Point. And even the funds that's supposed to be coming to Bayview Hunters Point, over $2 billion, we haven't seen a dime. Money's being diverted in other areas. If people want to do something for the community, why don't you come into the community and fight for the people in the community, because we are the ones that are getting sick and dying every day out there because of the sewage plant and because of the shipyard. So let's don't get carried away about who's going to have a job because she's supposed to be black. It ain't about what color you are. It's whether or not you're doing a job you're supposed to be doing. Thank you very much.
You know, I thought I could wait until this agenda item came, and I no longer can, because it's so hard to be in a room full of hypocrisy. I want to just first introduce myself. My name is Phaedra Ellis-Lampkins, and I used to run the organization Green for All that Juliet had a relationship with. What I find so offensive about this conversation is before Juliet went to the Public Utilities Commission, it said in her bio, including on the bio on the PUC website, that she was on the board of Green for All. So it's a little bit shocking what happens in the city of San Francisco when people find it and find it shocking. I also want to just be clear that part of why Juliet had any conflict is because, being the earnest person that she is, she identified it before anyone else did. So this is a woman who said, look, I want to be clear. I think I've made a mistake, and I need to let people know. And Green for All is an organization committed to really addressing issues of people of color and making sure there's opportunity. And what I find offensive is, I want to be clear because I know that you all don't say that, but just so people know, Juliet Ellis, it's $1,000. So just so you know, the fine in proportion to what she did, she took leadership while I was on maternity leave. So I had a challenging pregnancy, and so I just want to be clear so there's no more questions about what this was or how it happened. I also just want to be very clear that as someone who grew up in Bayview Hunters Point, that there aren't many people who get master's degree who find themselves and then say, let me figure out how to make my community better. Let me figure out how to make my community stronger. And what I find so shocking is, what I know most about San Francisco is you have a sheriff who got arrested for beating his wife, and I don't see him before this ethics commission, and I didn't see resolutions like this. So when you call upon a woman of color who went to San Francisco State, the hypocrisy of this commission is outrageous. And I just want to be clear that to go after a woman who's only spent her professional life so that this commission can have themselves in the newspaper for a resolution that, let's be clear, she already has an agreement with the city and county of San Francisco and this commission. After having an agreement that I assume was voted on by you all, you've decided to bring it back so that you can take additional public action. It is outrageous, it is unconscionable, and to do that a woman who spent her life with only the highest level of integrity, with the lowest compensation, is shameful, embarrassing, and I really feel as though this is a disgrace, not just to you, but to the people who actually need the services that she's committed her life to.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, I'm Amos Brown, and I'm president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in the city and county of San Francisco. And more importantly, I've served as senior pastor of the historic Third Baptist Church for 38 years. I rise to beg you to consider that Langston Hughes once said, I swear to the Lord I still can't see why democracy means everybody but me. This commission has gone through a democratic process, has done an investigation, and the majority vote was that this matter would be dropped. And I wonder what lens some might be looking through to see a different view rather than democracy. I have parishioners who live in Bayview Hunters Point, honorable persons who've served this city well, and they are vitally concerned about what's going on regarding this matter. It is excessive. It is pushing an issue that's a red herring, they appear to think. And I would plead with you today, let's major in major things and not minor things, and go on with what this commission is supposed to be doing to make sure that you're doing justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly with whatever might be your supreme being or principle.
Yes, my name is Charlie Walker, and I listen to what people say, and I didn't, by chance, think about but one thing. And most of the time when people come and talk to y'all, they started referring to us as people of color. You know, let's face it, this is a black-white issue. That's all it is. And, you know, regardless of what we do in this country, it always go back to that. Slavery has not left us in memory. And it doesn't matter whether you have black people on these boards or what. It's things that keep popping up. San Francisco is notorious for this. I was overseas 31 months, thrown out of an airplane in 3 explosions. I'm a disabled American veteran. And when I came back, they say niggas couldn't get in the Teamsters because I'm an engineer. How do you think I felt? How do you think we feel that every time we look up, every time, the mean and ugly face of racism peeps up? And that's all we talking about. I don't know who brought this issue back up again. We thought it was settled. It ain't settled. My only thing to any of you is this, is that, yeah, you know, Jewish people, I imagine, when Hitler was on the reign, they thought it was just the drunks and the dope addicts. It was all right until he knocked on their door. So you guys gotta understand this. San Francisco needs some policy changing. There's absolutely no reason for us to have to come down here about an issue that's already been decided. Why are we here? And I didn't mind coming down here because my senior Patterson, my very close friend, called my house and said, you got to go. Well, I'm here, and all I can say to all of you was, why don't we let sleeping dogs lie? Let the young lady, and I'm not territorial, because a black person in San Francisco is a black person in Oakland. I don't care about all of the territory, where they live. Only thing I care about is being treated like an American, like I thought I was when I was fighting for this country. And I was over there 31 months so y'all could sit on that board in peace.
Hi, my name is Jessie Casella, and during my previous employment at the SFPUC, I interacted on a regular basis with Juliet Ellis. I am here today to give public comment in strong support of Juliet and urge you to reject the proposed resolution. I urge you to reject this resolution not only because Juliet is an amazing person and inspirational leader, particularly to young women like myself, but also because passing this resolution would be contrary to the mission and code of ethics of this Ethics Commission. First, Juliet embodies the progressive ideals of San Francisco and exemplifies leadership. I am proud to call her a mentor. In fact, I would say that her current job is a perfect fit for her, and very few people could do the incredible job that she does. In my time working with her, I was able to see directly how her progressive mindset made the SFPUC better at community relations and really think about its impact on the community. Her leadership in this area is no small feat, and it is surprisingly rare among large utilities, which is why the SFPUC has become a model for utilities across the country. This is a direct result of Juliet being in this position, and removing her would be devastating to the future of the SFPUC, as well as the future of San Francisco residents. Second, the resolution states that Article 2 of your bylaws mandates that, quote, the mission of the Ethics Commission is to practice and promote the highest standards of ethical behavior in government. The remaining portion of this sentence, as it appears in your bylaws, which is not quoted in the resolution, states, quote, and to promote a work environment that values health, wellness, and diversity. Removing Juliet, a strong woman of color, which should be noted as relatively rare in the utilities field, would certainly not promote this mission of diversity and would likely run contrary to it. What this resolution also fails to mention is that this Ethics Commission, through your own Code of Ethics, also commits itself to 1, encouraging and promoting integrity in government by education and example, 2, fairly and objectively enforcing the city's ethics laws and regulations, and 3, treating all staff, members of the public, and colleagues with courtesy, respect, objectivity, and fairness. Regarding the first point, promoting integrity in government by education and example does not mean making examples out of a few leaders for a one-time violation. I am here today because the actions being considered by this commission seem extraordinarily punitive and unnecessary. Removing Juliet from her position, especially after settlement agreements were previously entered into between her and this commission, questions the objectivity of this commission. This resolution also seems to assume that leaders cannot learn from their mistakes while in office, and that the only way to promote integrity in government is to remove them from this position. I would stress that there are many other ways to promote this integrity without drastically impacting someone's career, the future of the SFUC, and the future of San Francisco. Again, I strongly urge you to support Juliet Ellis and reject the proposed resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. And anybody who wishes to speak will have the opportunity. I will note that we are taking up Ms. Ellis's matter in Agenda Item 5, so you'll also have a chance then. Please.
My name is Eric Larson. I'm Juliet Ellis's husband. I feel compelled to be here today to provide a personal point of view regarding Juliet. I've known Juliet over 20 years, and I know her to be honest above all else, kind and generous. In fact, she's one of the most honest people I know. So it's been very painful for her personally, as well as our family, to deal with this ongoing saga. Let us be clear, we're not here because of a slight bureaucratic misstep. We're here because certain persons have deliberately orchestrated a series of defaming events designed to smear Juliet's good name and reputation. We've endured these trials with the faith that these were challenges that were to be overcome and learned from. So Juliet has mostly suffered in silence. But today, Juliet's community has stepped forward to say, we've had enough already. We'll not stand aside anymore. I want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting Juliet. We know her, and hopefully justice will prevail. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Venetia Thompson, and for 3.5 years I worked as the Associate Director for Finance and Administration at Urban Habitat under the leadership of Juliet Ellis. I consider Juliet a mentor and a friend. When this matter broke in the news a year ago this month, my first reaction was, there must be a mistake, not Juliet. I was certain there was another side to the story because the Juliet I know would never knowingly do something unethical. Juliet prefers to err on the side of caution. She was a boss who could take no for an answer, which was a good thing for me as a chief financial person. She encouraged us to be honest and upfront with her and ask probing questions before making a decision. Juliet is passionate about her work. She truly cares about the issues affecting low-income people and people of color and has worked all her career for justice. Juliet has a brilliant, brilliant mind and can do far more good at the PUC to benefit the city of San Francisco than outside of it. I believe she has been punished enough and her employment with the city should not be terminated. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Harris, and this has to do with morals and ethics. Yes, I'm going through a bad time in my life. I'm not the most perfect person in the world, as you may all know. A series of events have happened in my life, and I feel a lot of my rights have been violated. I mean, seriously violated. And I'm not going to say for sure, but I'm pretty sure the whole Bay Area knows, and I could walk down the street, and this hurts me the most when kids in like the 3rd grade say, hey, there's Dopamine Bob, there's Dopamine Bob, there's Dopamine Bob, there's Dopamine. You know, some people might say, yeah, but he's really not a Dopamine. Okay, I'm not the most perfect person in the world, and I'm not going to try to be. But the series of events that happened to me are really demoralizing. And I'm wishing it would stop, but it's not. Cyberbullying, that's not good. People put my mother on blast on the radio, and I don't care who it is, if they're close to me or not. It shouldn't happen. People making millions off of me, and they're not trying to pay me. I mean, hey, I like to make people laugh, you know. You all know laughter is the best medicine, right? You laugh, you live longer, okay? But don't see something happening and don't do nothing about it, because I feel like, you know, excuse my French, that I've been shitted on. And it's time to, you know, have it to stop. You know, I feel bad, but thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Francesca Vitor. I'm a member of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. It was my understanding that there was a settlement that was reached on this case, and that Juliet Ellis paid her fines, and this matter was put to rest. And that was the position of our commission, was accepting the fines, accepting the contract that was signed between this commission and Juliet Ellis. So I urge you to reject this resolution. I also want to speak on behalf of Juliet Ellis as a colleague. We served on the commission together before she was appointed as Assistant General Manager. She spearheaded the effort to draft and adopt the environmental justice resolution that the San Francisco Public Utility Commission passed, as well as the community benefits resolution. These two resolutions are pioneering, groundbreaking resolutions in the country. And then she stepped down to be able to implement those two resolutions and to develop them into programs. The community benefits program, everybody in the country is looking at the implementation. It's creating jobs. It's creating opportunity throughout San Francisco. We at the Commission are very, very proud of this program and very proud of Juliet's efforts in spearheading those efforts. So again, I urge you to reject this resolution. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Joe Brooks. I've known Juliet for over 16 years. I first became aware and got to know Juliet when she was my program fellow at the San Francisco Foundation. I was a program officer there. Outstanding young lady, bright, smart, full of integrity, energy, passion, and a willingness to take on risks and to serve community. I later had the opportunity to work with Juliet for 13 years as the chair of the Urban Habitat Program, and she was its director for 11 years before she took the job that she now has. When I heard about what is happening tonight, I was absolutely floored. I'd already been in touch with Juliet when this incident first went down over a year ago, and had been consoling with her and counseling her and asking her to keep her chin up and to keep the fight up. But when I learned that you were bringing this issue to the front tonight, I was absolutely amazed. I thought this was finished in January. She paid her dues. Is this a witch hunt or a colored girl hunt? I am absolutely shocked and disappointed that you would do what you're doing, wasting our money and our time and undermining the reputation of a very qualified and dedicated individual. Please reject this resolution.
My name is Belvie Rooks, and I grew up in the Fillmore. My family moved to Hunters Point when we were redeveloped out of the Fillmore. I was the first youth chair of the NAACP, and Willie Brown was a law student and was our advisor. I say all of this not to kind of indicate how old I am, but mostly to say that I am a San Franciscan. I've grown. I went to Polytechnic High School, which no longer exists. So I stand here before you as one of Juliet's mentors. She is a young woman. When I was working as Director of Communications at the Urban Habitat, at the time, Carl Anthony was the Executive Director and President of Earth Island Institute with David Brower. And Juliet was working on her MBA at San Francisco State. And I was asked to sit in on the interview when she came to apply for a job as Carl's assistant. Basically, a very low-level job. But what I was impressed by was her passion and her commitment and her caring for community and for people, marginalized people of every color. And I sat through that interview, and when she walked out of the room, we had a flood of people from San Francisco State, from the University of California, from Stanford, who really wanted to work as an assistant to Carl Anthony, who was then president of and chair of the Urban Habitat, which was the oldest environmental justice organization in the country. I was honored and excited, and Carl and I looked at each other, and we said, it's this young woman, hands down. So I have known her for the last 17 years. I have been proud to claim her as one of my mentees and somebody that I've mentored. I have listened to her talk about the challenges of working in the public sector. It's ironic that she's not here, because where is she? She's in Portland addressing a university that is excited about what's happening in California and the work that she's doing. Where was she last week? She was invited to Cornell University, to the African American Studies program, to talk to them about public utilities, because there ain't no black people. And so to see on the web these young African American and Asian and Latino women that she spoke to, that then felt like there was a place for them in public utilities. So this is a disgrace. It's an insult. I grew up in Hunters Point. So I don't want to hear about Hunters Point and territoriality. People are suffering. We need the best people. And I don't understand why we're here this evening. So I would beg you to reject. And the other thing that concerns me, somebody said, well, this was a bunch of lawyers. Well, I'm concerned about a bunch of lawyers who have entered into who don't understand contract law, who have entered into a contract that they have all signed off on, that she had signed off on. I would be concerned about lawyers that didn't understand contract law. So whoever brought this, I urge you to reject it.
Good evening. My name is Orson Aguilar. I'm the executive director of a statewide organization called the Greenlining Institute. And at Greenlining, we fight redlining. We work to ensure that communities of color throughout the state, including San Francisco, have economic opportunities to live the American dream. And I worked alongside Juliet for many, many years, have known her, and really couldn't think of a better public servant. San Francisco is so lucky to have her. The PUC is so lucky to have her. She's making history with the work she's doing around environmental justice, community benefits. For us to have this on the agenda today, I think is just total injustice if you look at her life and the work she's doing. So just really urge you to vote against this resolution. Unfortunately, I have to go home. I'm not going to see what the outcome is till later because I have 3 little ones at home and I try to make it there so I can have dinner with them. But the reason why I bring that up is when I teach them about strong women in their lives to my son, my daughter, and the baby, I want to teach them about people like Juliet. And so I ask you to not tarnish that with the wrong vote today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fred Blackwell. I'm the city administrator for the city of Oakland, and had to leave my job to come here today. And I'm actually sad, disappointed, and upset that I have to do so. I've known Juliet for about 16 years as well. I first got to know Juliet when she was a fellow at the San Francisco Foundation, and I was working there as well. Juliet, I also served on the board of Urban Habitat when Juliet was the executive director, and served as a colleague of hers when I was the executive director of San Francisco's redevelopment agency. Juliet is one of the most hardworking, dedicated, committed people that I have ever worked with when it comes to issues having to do with low-income communities, communities of color, and in general, people who are in need of the kind of work and the kind of hard work and smart work that Juliet brings to the table. As I said, I was the executive director here at the redevelopment agency. Before that, I was the director of the Mayor's Office of Community Development, and currently run the city of Oakland. And Juliet is somebody who I would hire at a heartbeat. She is a person of integrity. She is a person who works hard. She is a person who is selfless in a lot of ways. And it saddens me to have to come before this body here in San Francisco, a city that is known to be progressive, a city that is known to be one to protect the rights of folks who haven't necessarily had their rights protected by others. You can name the issue, and San Francisco has been at the forefront of it. But to have to come here today and have to speak on Juliet's behalf, especially after the process was done already, is really disheartening. And I hope that you all really reject the resolution that's in front of you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Arnold Townsend, Reverend Arnold Townsend. Let me just say that, and with all due respect to the folk in the audience, I'm not here for Juliet, because Juliet doesn't really matter. It could be any African American in this town, and they could find themselves in the same situation. I'm here because of racism, unfairness, and injustice. I'm here because I have been in this town right near 50 years, and I have to ask young couples at my church when they become pregnant, do they really want to raise a black child in this town? Are you prepared to do that? Because it's not going to be fair. I want to know, for African Americans, when does double jeopardy attach to us? It has never attached to us historically, and we see another time for it to not attach at this commission meeting tonight. What is the difference between what you're doing in a suit and tie, between what you're doing in a suit and tie in San Francisco than what the good old boys did down south 50 and 60 years ago, when they didn't wait for the justice system, as unfair as it was, to deal with a black person, but they went and pulled them out and lynched them. And that's what we're here today, is for another black lynching. And I am so tired of coming to commissions and boards like you in this town asking for the simple rights that you give white folk. That when you make a decision, you have the courage to stick by it. See, if any of you are attorneys, how many of you had a decision go down that you didn't like? And you knew you couldn't rerun it, and you wouldn't have tried because you expect to respect the rights of the judicial system, but not the rights of black folk.
Hi. I sure wouldn't want to be y'all. I really wouldn't. You were clearly ill-advised, and I feel sorry for you. I've been in public life, as are you, and sometimes you just step in it, and it's good to go ahead and admit that early. Sometimes it makes it a little bit easier. Before I get to my comments, I have to give some respect to my mentors and my elders who are here, who helped me when I lived in this town as a young activist. Reverend Amos Brown, who is here, who led the fight for justice, Mother Belvy Rooks, Baba Dedan, who is here, and so many others. They raised me up, and they raised Juliet up. And I am ashamed that we have not done a better job as a generation to be able to protect our own peers from these kinds of attacks, and that we still have to rely on our elders and our mentors to come here and defend and protect us. But let me say this. My name is Van Jones. I used to be a local activist. Used to try to help kids who were sent away to prison. I saw kids being sent away to prison for doing things in Bayview Hunters Point that my classmates were doing at Yale Law School. I saw my classmates smoking dope at Yale Law School. They didn't go to prison. But I saw kids the same age down here in Bayview Hunters Point that still have not come back. And that bothered me. And I took my law degree to try to do something about it. And I burned out. It was too hard. I went to too many funerals. I'm not as strong as my mentors and my elders. I went to too many funerals. Seeing young people laying in caskets and grown folks sitting up in the pews with white hair. If you do that enough times, it does something to you. And I started to look at myself, what could I do that would make a positive difference to create a better future for these young people? And there was one person I was able to reach out to who was able to help me get through that situation and come up with a positive answer. Her name was Juliet Ellis. Juliet Ellis joined the board of the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, which I was blessed to found almost 20 years ago, and helped that little organization turn around from just a politics of outrage and anger and confrontation and come up with positive solutions. And those positive solutions were called green jobs. And she helped us get the city of Oakland to create a Green Jobs Corps. And that Green Jobs Corps started putting young African American men and women and Latino men and women to work putting up solar panels. A woman named Nancy Pelosi heard about the work that Juliet Ellis and Lisa Spinelli and myself were doing, and she took me by the hand to Washington, D.C. A man by the name of George W. Bush was so inspired by the work that Juliet Ellis was helping us do that he signed into law a bill called the Green Jobs Act of 2007. Juliet Ellis counseled me to write a book. I wrote a book about it. The book became a bestseller. A man named Senator Barack Obama read the book. Senator Barack Obama read the book, and he said, these ideas are so good that you come up with in the Bay Area
Excuse
that
me,
we're
sir,
going
I'm sorry, but you're over time, and we do have many speakers.
Very good. Thank you very much. And he said, I want you to come to the White House.
Thank you,
and
sir.
And at the White House, he said these ideas are so good that we're going to put $80 billion behind them. That is
Sir, please, there are many speakers behind you.
Can't do that. Can't do that.
Who you are persecuting is a young woman whose ideas are so good that the President of the United States has endorsed her ideas. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, the Congresswoman of this city, endorsed her ideas. George W. Bush endorsed her ideas, and her persecution had stopped. Now I'll say this as I close. She made a mistake. She made a mistake. And I was taught by my elders and my mentors, when you make a mistake, don't lie about it. Don't hide it. Come forward, make an apology, make an amends, and then keep trying to make a difference. That is what she is doing. Now, if she has to follow the rules, you have to follow the rules. I'm going to tell you this. There is something called a state bar association.
certification. And the State Bar Association looks very, very unkindly upon people who have law degrees and have bar card certification and who abuse their authority. They will be hearing about this no matter what you do today. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a 3-minute time limit. Please observe that, because those are also the rules.
Follow the rules, you follow the rules.
I'm the one that put it on the damn book.
I'm following the rules, you follow the rules, sir.
Please, ma'am, proceed.
I want to start by saying amen to what was just said. My name is Judith Bell. I have worked for my entire career on issues of economic and social equity. I currently work for Policy Link, which is a national organization. I've known Juliet for many years, working with her on many different issues. And when she came to the PUC, she brought her recognized dedication, she brought her vision, and she came as a woman of color in an arena where there were not many women and certainly not many people of color. When this issue first emerged, many of us thought that this issue was overreaching and unnecessary, but we accepted when an agreement was reached. We thought the book was closed. Juliet is honest. She is a person of integrity. She is moving agendas that are recognized around the country as setting important precedents. She is putting the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission on the map in a way that is setting policy across the country. I cannot understand why this issue has reemerged. I cannot understand why you all have decided to put it on the agenda tonight. It is outrageous and an outrage. And given that an agreement has been reached, this proposal should be rejected. You all should move quickly. There is no need for this to be reopened, and it is time to put it to close. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Derica Mearns, and I'm the executive director of a nonprofit in the South Bay, where sometimes I feel like we think the San Jose City Council and Commission is a zoo, but if we're a zoo, y'all are a circus. So I've known Juliet Ellis for over 10 years. I was a very young community organizer working in the East Bay when Juliet really took me under her wing and taught me what it meant to be honest, what it meant to have integrity and lead with values. She is a person of strong values, strong convictions, and she understands her history. It's not a history of a bureaucrat. It's not a history of somebody who was born to be in the position of power that she has found herself. She comes from, her perspective is one of an advocate and an activist, like myself and like the communities that she represented for so many years. And that makes her a target, a double target, because she is a woman of conviction and she is a woman of color of conviction. And this is absolutely, as folks have said, a witch hunt of outrageous proportions. Like I said, a circus is what comes to mind. So, you know, this commission, I believe, is charged with upholding the integrity of our common good here in San Francisco, and that you would blatantly go out of your way to conduct this kind of witch hunt, well, I'm speechless. And I urge you, lead with your values, as Juliet has and will continue to do. Put this thing to bed. Let us go home. My kids are at home, too, and I'm here because my husband and I decided this was important. And, you know, enough is enough.
Good evening. My name is Retha Robinson, and of course I ditto everything that folks have said about Juliet. She's a personal friend of mine. I love her. We shouldn't be here. But I've known her for the last 15 years. She was a former colleague of mine at the San Francisco Foundation. And as everyone else has said, she's a hard worker, she's diligent, she's honest, and she's an advocate for the underserved. I'm totally confused as to why we are standing here today defending her character and integrity. It's my understanding that in January, this attack on her honesty and loyalty and advocacy for the residents of San Francisco was put to rest. Juliet has made amends to the Ethics Commission, paid her fines, and is trying to do her job at the PUC. Today, she was a keynote speaker at a racial equity conference. How ironic is that? She had to speak on racial equity. This hearing seems to be a racially motivated witch hunt. Too many city staff in the past several months have been accused of much, much more, and they still have their jobs. To call her last Friday and tell her that someone on the Ethics Commission wants to reopen the discussion and recommend her termination on Monday is rude, unprofessional, and full of political bullcrap. I hope she has her day in court.
Good evening. My name is Vivian Chang. I've worked for over a decade hand in hand with Juliet as we were sitting down and working with the cities of Oakland and Richmond, standing down corporations like Chevron and trying to figure out how to invest and lift up and create communities in Oakland and Richmond that would be thriving and sustainable. So you've had a number of speakers here today. I see the glaze. I mean, I'm very familiar with the glaze that start to go over once you hit speaker 35 or whatever it is. You know, everyone that you've heard here today, from the NAACP to neighborhood residents to key community leaders and organizational leaders, the one thing I'll just leave you here with is that is a fraction of who believes in Juliet Ellis and what she is trying to do in this city. So tread carefully, because the outrage that you have heard here, that's nothing, right? So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Gray, and I'm a business owner and resident here in San Francisco. I'm also a professor at Mills College, and I teach in the area of racial equity, social justice, and women's leadership. And I'm here to talk to you in that context tonight. And I really want to echo some of the things that Reverend Townsend said earlier. It really feels as if this is, that Juliet is being held to undue scrutiny. You had your bite at the apple. You came to a decision. She paid her restitution. And I have to question what the motivation is behind this particular resolution. As Reverend Townsend stated, this is a city that has time and time again shown that it has clear disregard for African American residents and how it treats us and where it puts us. And the fact that this body in particular, and I don't know if you know the statistics, and as a professor of social justice and racial equity, I will tell you that African Americans and people of color are held to higher scrutiny in these kinds of bodies across the country. It is another indication of the institutional racism that exists in this country. And for this body in this city, which does say that it is a bastion of diversity, which we know not to be really true based upon these kinds of investigations and this kind of scrutiny of African Americans and other people of color. So I urge you, one, to reconsider and to vote this a no resolution and not to move forward on this issue, because it does call into question your ethics as a commission and the way in which this city in particular treats its African American community and the way in which it seems to overly penalize African Americans. And I really hope that you will look into your hearts. And someone earlier said that you should look at your values, and I have to question where your values lie, given the fact that we're here tonight. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Dwayne Jones. I'm a business owner here in San Francisco. I've also had the pleasure of serving as a department head here for the city for the Office of Community Development, and also serving as one of the senior advisors for Mayor Newsom for the 7 years that he served as mayor here. This is embarrassing, and this is ridiculous, and this is not what we do here in San Francisco. This is just not what we do. We have a process. When this whole issue first came up, not just these people in this room, but everybody in neighborhoods, everybody in community-based organizations wanted to come before you at that particular point. At that particular moment, we were asked to stand down and allow you to go through your process. We respected that process. And what did you all do in return? Disrespect us. This is not acceptable on any level. You've heard it a ton of times already. You had a process, you made a vote, you made a decision, she paid her fine, it's done. So unless there's a willingness of this body to start bringing everything that you've already decided upon back, you need to close the book on this one. I urge you to reject this item.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Mahones, and I'm a consultant for social justice organizations, and I've spent about 20 years working for social justice organizations and racial justice organizations. I've known Juliet Ellis for over a decade, and as everybody before me has already stated, she is a person. The words honesty, integrity, hardworking, committed, passionate, and devoted to communities that have been underserved are what comes to mind. So imagine my surprise when I heard about this. And I think the thing that folks are particularly concerned about, again, is, I don't know, could folks entertain me for a moment? Who here has not ever made a mistake? If there's somebody here who's not ever made a mistake, could you please stand up? I guess y'all are the only ones who have never made a mistake. So for most of us humans, we make mistakes, right? Making a mistake is not an end to the story. It's what we do with what we learn from the mistakes that we make. And what I understand about this situation is that, let's talk about intent and impact, right? So there was no malicious intent here, but also what was the impact that she tried to ensure that good work was going to be happening through an organization that's nationally known to do such work. And she might have had some insight on that because she happened to sit on the board. I sit on plenty of boards, and that helps me understand that an organization is doing good work, that they're fiscally sound, right? But be that as it may, you know, she made the mistake, she took responsibility for the mistake, and the matter should have been already put to bed. So what I don't understand is how we're opening this can of worms up again. I'm also really concerned about the message. What is the message that you're trying to send to us? There are tons of people who are committed to their communities who don't pursue public service or public office for these very situations, right? We've got a lot of common sense folks who are brilliant in what they do, but they don't have the patience for what somebody might put them through if they were to put their name in the hat. We don't need to do that. We have a competent person who's owned up to her mistake, and she's ready to do more, and she's already proven her worth. That's why she got the job in the first place. I want to just close with what many before us have said. I mean, I'm here on a moment's notice. We are the tip of the iceberg. Seriously. I really hope you understand the respect that Juliet has throughout not just the San Francisco, but the whole Bay Area and nationally. She's beloved. So you picked the wrong one with this one, and I urge you to reconsider.
Angelo King, Commissioner, longtime Chair of the Project Area Committee, the Community Advisory Group to the redevelopment process out in Baby Hunters Point, and I have known Juliet Ellis for about 15 years. I'm a parent. My son just got out of track practice. He's sitting out on the bench right now. But I thought it was important enough to come down here because I can't imagine if this goes through, what does that say for any of my brothers and sisters who have somebody in their office that they're subordinate to that wants to get rid of them? Because quite frankly, there's a lot of that going on right now. And those folks go on doing the work that they can, and the people that are above them, their superiors who don't like them, trump up charges or try and double down on penalties, all in an effort to get rid of them. And that clearly seems the case here. Since a decision was made, somebody opened it back up. How do you know that that process isn't being urged on part of somebody who just disagrees with the ideology of the person that we have here? And if they disagree with the ideology of the person that we have here, then I disagree with them, because in general, I agree with Miss Ellis. So, you know, I'm here because the next time somebody, an African American, ends up in the Chronicle or something like that, and we look into it and we find out that it really wasn't all that serious, and we've seen like cases like that. I don't want to put any of our fellow people on record here, but you know, the newspaper been full of people who haven't lost their job from all kind of crazy stuff in this city. So what are we talking about here? And then finally, last point is this. As we are talking as African Americans about out-migration and telling people that San Francisco is a place for you to raise your family and trying to ask them to come back and be a part of this community and look at them taking positions in government, you know, you can't ask for the best and the brightest and do this to some of the best and the brightest. She's of such held in high esteem that this hits national papers. This hits the circuit of look what San Francisco does. Are we that? Nah. So I urge you not to be used by whoever it is that's pressing this. They're just going to have to deal with Miss Ellis and whatever dislikes they have or differences of opinion that they have. They cannot use this case that has been closed to terminate her. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you, Angela. I'm a little bit afraid. I'm a little bit afraid. My name is DeAndre Brookton. I'm the Deputy Director of Young Community Developers in Bayview Hunters Point. I'm actually sad and remiss to say that I've only known Ms. Ellis for 3.5 years. Based off of everything that you've heard today, I wish I've known her longer. And I hope I get the opportunity to do so. Those of us that have known Juliet and the quality of her character and the impact of her work can't help but make that observation that this is actually an attack on a woman and a woman of color. The Commission signed a binding agreement in January and has reopened it up for litigation by breaking that agreement just so it could continue to attack her. The SFPUC did its own investigation and found no purposeful intent behind the mistake. The Ethics Commission investigation also found no intent. Juliet is an activist and not a bureaucrat, and just made an honest mistake of someone who has not spent her life in city government. This example of the Ethics Commission violating a written agreement that they had Juliet speaks to other motivation. It just makes you sit back and say, what's the motivation behind this? This is a waste of San Francisco taxpayer dollars. The issue has been resolved and they need to move on and stop attacking her. It seemed like the issue was put to bed 2 months ago, so it makes no one wonder why they bring this up again. The PUC found no purposeful intent behind the mistake. This very own body found no intent behind the mistake. And as a young man, an African American of color, I just ask that you just put this to rest. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Julia Butterfly Hill. I'm most known for having lived for over 2 years without touching the ground in an over 1,000-year-old ancient redwood tree here in California to keep it from being cut down and to call attention to the plight of our old-growth forests around the world. You might be wondering why I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to speak on the matter of integrity. And in that space, I am proud to stand alongside Juliet Ellis. Integrity doesn't, as has been mentioned already tonight, integrity does not mean to make no mistakes. We only grow through making mistakes and learning from them. Juliet Ellis represents someone who has been willing to take so many risks to make the world better for others. How do you know someone playing a game full out, like basketball? Because they miss a couple of shots. Because they're going full out. They're going beyond their capacity to win the game. Juliet Ellis is someone who has time and time and time again gone beyond the capacity to make a win for those who would otherwise not even be represented in the game. I can speak on integrity because I gave my word in December of 1997 that I would not touch the ground again until I'd done everything I could to save that tree. I went through the worst winter in recorded history of California. I went through people literally trying to kill me. I went through defamation in the newspapers, just like Juliet has, and I stayed because I was raised to know that integrity means you give 100% to something, and if you make a mistake, you own it, you fix it, and then integrity is back. So it is an honor to stand up here and say, the reason I come here tonight, I have asthma that is really bad. This is actually, I came out of bed to come here tonight. I've been in bed all day because I have not been able to breathe with a very severe migraine. That also makes it interesting for me because Juliet Ellis represents the coming together of environment and race in utilities, which happens to impact people like me with asthma. And that this idea of what we do with the environment and how we affect people are connected. So I'm feeling it in my body as well. But I also wanted to stand here and state that I don't allow my name to be associated with just anyone. I've had corporations offer me thousands and thousands of dollars to market them as green, and I've walked away because integrity is not something that can be bought. It is who you are. And Juliet Ellis is a person of integrity, and it is an honor to be a part of this community saying, strike down this resolution and move forward because we need more Juliet Ellises, not less. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth, and I've known Juliet for more than 20 years, so I suppose that's perhaps the longest. I really don't like speaking in public, but I feel completely compelled because I've spent hours on the phone with her in tears and trying to really remind her who she is as a person, that all of these attacks on her character are completely unjust, and that she has to stay strong because she does not want to end her government career on this note. And I'm telling you, it was touch and go for a while because of how much pain this whole process caused. And I just want to thank everybody for being here because this is the meeting I've been wanting her to witness and have so that she knows that the majority of the people, anybody who knows her, I always told her, anybody who has ever met you would say these kinds of things about you. And it's just, I don't know. I talked to my mom today, who loves her, and Juliet and I often talk about our mothers. And, you know, when I first met her in Baby Hunters Point, when we were working on youth leadership programs, and she came to interview me, and I had to pretend I knew what I was talking about. And we had a really hilarious conversation, and I knew right away that I found somebody who actually cares, who's honest, who's going to work hard, who's really funny and really smart. And we spent the next 20 years working together. And I couldn't have asked for a better colleague or a friend or a boss. And we laugh about, you know, why are we surrounded by crazy people sometimes? You know, it's like you're raised to be raised right. Like, where are people's manners? You're taught not to lie, not to cheat. And, you know, and this is why people can get up here and speak for hours about her. None of these people are making this up. You know, and I feel like I don't understand why the newspapers come out and it's such a one-sided story. It's just like a big joke. Even my husband, who doesn't track politics, he's like, it just sounds like it's a character assassination right from the beginning. You know, and to pick on somebody like that, it really is beyond words. And I don't know, my mother really wanted me to ask you this. She wants to understand what the hidden agenda is here. And that's it. I mean, I'm really, really curious. You've been hearing a lot of people talking to you. I don't know if we get a chance to hear what you really think, but that's what I want to know. I don't get it. I do not get why all of this keeps happening. It's really shameful. It's embarrassing. And for Juliet, she's really staying strong because she actually cares about the work. And for this to push her out of her job because people are basically ganging up on her and telling lies about her, for her to go out on that note, that's what I kept advising her. You don't want to go out on that note. You came in to do this job. She was so excited to work for the PUC because she could actually have impact. We worked for 10 years in a nonprofit, and every single day we talked about how can we make a bigger difference. We were playing with little peanuts, and here she is in this powerful position, and she was so excited.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Thanks. I just want to pull the van moment because I have another idea. She was so excited because she had the ability to actually move real resources into the communities that she dedicated her whole life to. And, you know, and here was this big opportunity, and to get slammed like that, and I wish I had the numbers with me, the millions of dollars she's thinking, that was the excitement. She wanted to get the money where it needed to go, and to get the programs where it needed to go, and for you to be assassinating, character assassinating this person of all the people is really a shame.
Commissioners, my name is Lisa Spadali, and I'm a third-generation San Franciscan with roots in the Bayview on 1612 LaSalle Street. And I am here today because I've had the chance to work with Juliet for a number of years and serving on the board of the Ella Baker Center, as well as working with her at Urban Habitat, and currently working on some of the preliminary work around the community benefits work that's happening around education in the Bayview, which is amazingly powerful. We need more leaders like Juliet. No one wants to go into public service, and this certainly doesn't help the case. You reached a decision, the decision was closed. It's a question mark of how could this possibly happen. The very first conversation I ever had with Juliet when I first served on the board of Ella Baker with her was about manners. It's so funny that the last speaker talked about manners. My first conversation with her was about why don't more people have good manners? Why aren't more people honest? Why aren't more people direct and deal with things the way that they should be dealt with? And it saddens me to think what has happened, because the juxtaposition of what has happened over the past year against who she is an atrocity, and it's an embarrassment as a San Franciscan. I'm also the president of my neighborhood association, and I have to do that job in a good democratic way. And I would expect that you as the Ethics Commission will hold yourselves to a very high standard, because this is the place where the buck kind of stops with you. If a decision is made and it's closed, it's closed. If you reopen it, where is your efficacy? So I ask you, please, citizen to citizen, to please not bring this any more forward and let Juliet continue to do the good work that she's currently doing. Thank you.
My name is Ed Donaldson. I'm the chairperson of the San Francisco chapter of the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, better known as ACE. I first came in contact with Juliet Ellis several years ago when I was introduced to a program which is a nationally recognized program. So there's a trend that's going on here. So first she inspired a couple of presidents through a green jobs program. Then she inspired countless cities around the country through the creation of a community benefits program where she basically created something out of nothing. She's also responsible for the creation of what's called the Urban Habitat Board and Commission Leadership Program. It is a program that trains people from communities of color and also low-income communities to serve on boards like these. It's clear that from the folks that you heard from today that this is an extraordinary woman. And I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what is this all about. I mean, here's a woman that has inspired 3 nationally recognized programs that are empowering 2 communities of color. So there's a trend there. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but I just want to say that I concur with all the great things that have been said about Juliet, and I ask you guys very kindly that you would just dismiss this resolution and allow her to go on with her life and with the great work that she's doing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Woods. I'm with the San Francisco Black Human Rights Leadership Council. And I don't know Julia the way a lot of the people in the audience spoke about Julia. I met Julia through the Southeast facility that was given to the community for taking in the solid waste that came to Bayview Hunters Point. That facility was given to the community about 1982, and my acquaintance with her now is she is part of a team that is coming in to reclaim that facility back to the PUC. Only thing I ask is if you all understand what we are living with on a day-to-day basis with that solid waste facility out there and the kind words you're saying about Julia, please talk to her about our situation that we living in out there where we got that solid waste facility out there and we get the smell out there. Only thing we're saying is that sensitivity that you are giving her, pass that over to her so she can pass it over to us. We need that out there. And I did not come to bury Julia. I came here to ask for your help to talk with Julia about our needs out there in terms of what we need out there, because number one, that facility out there was given to the community through mitigation in terms of the sewer that was being brought into that community. And I'm not asking for her head. I'm asking for her to give us that same kind of sympathy that you all find with her, that y'all see what she has to give. Give it to us. We're not asking for a lot, but we are asking that facility out there, it's the community facility. It's not PUC's facility. We took in the crap for that facility, and we are out there training our kids, and if they take it, we lose that college out there, we lose everything, anything that they want to do out there to change that situation, we lose. And I say, please, tell Julia we love her too.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up.
Tell her we love her too, and we ask for that same kindness. Lord, you gave her, and I'm going to give it back. All right. When they get through.
Hi, my name is Teresa Goins. I'm the founder of Old School Cafe, which is in the Baby Hunters Point, and it's an organization that helps keep kids out of jail and out of the streets and to stop the violence. Juliet has been a great friend to us and to our community and to the youth. Has just been somebody that we could right away say, these are the things that are going on. We need support. And just her heart is for our kids. Her heart is for the community. And so I just want to say a couple words about, we talk about making mistakes and owning it. I would encourage this body to not only stop this resolution, but also to apologize to her. Because I want you to understand what it does to a person when you are already doing work and heart and soul in the community. It's hard. What we're up against and all the people in this community that are doing great, incredible work, this is a waste of everybody's time to have to go through this. As well as her time and what it does to her spirit. Don't shoot holes in her sails. It's already hard enough to do this work than to be persecuted and have all this time, and what it does to you emotionally when you're trying to do the work and then you have all this coming against is really, really, it's past unfortunate. So I would say even an apology to her. Let's squash this and move on and let her do the great work. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Caesar Churchwell. I'm Vice President of San Francisco African American Chamber of Commerce. I know you up here have heard the testimony, the favors for her. I wonder if you understand what we're talking about. The thing is, and another thing I want to know, do you know the definition of what closed case is? Closed case means through, finish. Must be a reason why you're bringing this back up. We don't know the reason why, but I know this sounds like a witch hunt. It is a witch hunt, and is a thing that should have been dissolved a long time ago, and it was, but you're bringing it back up. Why? Answer these questions. This is an ethics committee where you ought to do the ethical thing. So.
So my name is John. I'm with a local community. I'm a director of a local community group, but I'm also I've known Juliet through her work at Urban Habitat in the East Bay, and you've heard from a lot of people about how principled, how high a character, honorable, integrity, and I echo that statement, all those statements from many speakers here today. She really has advanced a number of important programs for low and moderate income people and really become a model of how we can create greater accountability within some of our public agencies here in San Francisco, which is a very difficult town to create real change in, especially for low income people. So the PUC has done their investigation. There's been an agreement that was done a couple of months ago. It seems pretty logical that this should all be done. It should have been done a couple of months ago. But by doing this, you create a pretty powerful group of people that have come out to say to not only stop, but I would agree, change a resolution to a resolution that's about apology to Juliet and to really stop this witch hunt and stop this politically motivated action. So.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is Christian Frazina. I'm not a California resident by birth. I moved here a few years ago. I just retired from the Air Force. Sorry, everybody. I did 22 years of dedicated service in the United States Air Force. And within the Air Force, there's something called the core values, and that's integrity first, excellence in all we do, and service before self. Anybody that knows Juliet knows that this is her hands absolute down. Another thing I'd like to say is punishment is a learning tool within the Air Force, and as we're growing up through our childhoods, she's learned from her mistakes, she's paid for it. It's a very honest one. Let's just press on, move forward, and I'm pretty sure y'all have something else better to do at this moment than sit here and listen to everybody else, along with myself, tell you how great she is, because that is a true fact. Where I come from, and I'm sure everybody else has heard this, those people that push on things like this usually trying to hide something themselves. So I might want to take that into account if I were you, because it could be you under this chopping block eventually. Maybe you won't have all these good people standing here on your side. Her ethical, integral, and moral standing are the highest accord. She's always and will continue to fight for what is right, whether or not you believe that, that's your time. Having us here tonight is us giving back to her, paying her forward, and hoping that she can get past and through all this, and we can all let her do her job. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carol Tatum, and I have lived in San Francisco since 1955. And I have seen the African American population go from somewhere between 17 and 25% to now between 4 and 6%. I have seen African Americans live in substandard housing, as now 80% of the 4 to 6% live in either public or subsidized housing. So that is an indication of how San Francisco treats African Americans. Now, I don't know Juliet, and quite frankly, I didn't know about this situation. I don't read the newspaper as much as I should, but heard about it yesterday. And as a matter of principle, I felt that I should come here today. It sounds like this was a matter that had been resolved, but you have chosen to reopen it. I don't know why. And people have indicated that there must be some ulterior motive. And as I sit and I listen, I have to believe that myself. But as President Obama said, Trayvon Martin could have been his son. Juliet could be my daughter. And so I asked you to stop this mistreatment of African Americans in this city. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comment. Sir, please.
Yes, my name is Sean Richard. I'm the Executive Director of Brothers Against Guns. I met Juliet because she helped us with a second round of young men that we was helping, called a redirection program, with one of my counterpartners, Kim Mitchell, that we started. helping young men that was dealing with violence, anger management, conflict resolutions, and trying to get their life together and help them with get jobs. We met her through the San Francisco Foundation, and we were short on trying to seek money. She helped us out and directed us. But the question is that we're opening up a case, then why not open up the Trayvon Martin case? Why not reopen that up and deal with that? If we're going to deal with any issues, let's deal with a lot of issues that we got going on in San Francisco. This is a small issue. We all make mistakes. We bounce back, we do the right thing, and we move forward. We live and we build and we move on. But this right here is ridiculous. But I want to say to you guys is this. Ask yourself, if it was you, will you guys be going through the same situation that Juliet is going through? Honestly, ask yourself that.
Thank you for your comments. Are you, please?
Hi, my name is Larry Edmond. I live in the city since '89. I'm a former '99 mayor candidate. I got 8 write-in candidates. And I'm a black, gay, positive man, use medical marijuana, not crack addicted. And this city has a lot going on. And for African American people, we're not getting the service, we're not getting the attention. Knowing that this lady is working out in Bayview where there's $100 million homes being built, when you're trying to take the public project money and build those homes out there, knowing that, they're trying to put even the plane crash in the age of the plane, it's in the black fire lady. She's responsible for that running over her. The black policeman get beat up in Bayview. He's a policeman. You see this noose on my neck right here on my tie? Someone went in my room and put a noose, tied this into a noose. It's on I was a white string, but things like this in San Francisco, we become known for Indian people apartments tying a white string and put a noose on your tie. I have a black man's tie. They wear it today. I wear it tomorrow at the Board of Supervisors. But stuff like this is going on. I'm not surprised that we're here. Tonight is really a good meeting of the minds because ethics, should be part of all of our lives. And San Francisco stands tall on the mountain, but we have to know that African Americans have made this city what it is greatly, and it's not appreciative of anything here. If you look at the Tenderloin where I stay at, how hard it is to walk through and see people laying on the street. The mayor and the health commission doesn't want to give them crack pipes so they can possibly get pharmaceutical crack. They got pharmaceutical speed. They got pharmaceutical methadone. But you don't want to get the African American people anything to come up. Thank God that I seen President Michelle Obama, the First Lady, and her daughters over in China walking the Great Wall. And this thing about where African American kids are losing their funding because they say we don't have housing here, so they don't need the money. The education is being distinguished. As ethics, I don't want you to feel like you are Russia, Uganda, Cameroon, Nigerian. I feel like our ethics in this city, are they really part of the human experience? And tonight, I think, I don't know her, but I know that I work hard to be a great humanitarian from this part of the country for the rest of our world. And San Francisco should treat its blacks that are here much better. We have 38,000 registered black voters in here. We need to start by coming here on 4/4, the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated, for standing up with the trash men, and be out here for housing and schools and education in San Francisco this for Friday. Because we're going to start with Cesar Chavez, and we're going to come down here and ask everyone to be part of what ethics in San Francisco, where it should look back west. Thank you.
I want to thank the speaker and all the speakers for their comments. Many of them were very moving, and clearly Ms. Ellis is lucky to have you all. During the course of the comments, Commissioner Keene asked to be specially recognized at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I speak as a point of personal privilege. I had never known Miss Ellis. I had no idea who she was. I've never met her. I didn't know her race. I knew nothing about her. I see the supporters she has. I see the people who are here, whom I've known in San Francisco, many of them for 40 years or more. People like Reverend Amos Brown, Arnold Townsend, Van Jones, many other people from the Ella Baker Center. What happened in regard to this matter, in terms of you're asking for an explanation of it as to whether or not there's some sort of hidden agenda, I can tell you there's not. And let me just go give you the history of what happened here, so we can all understand, and then I can do what I have to do. We had Miss Ellis essentially admit to and plead guilty to a couple of things, which one were two counts of influencing a government decision in which the official has a financial benefit, and also another count of a violation of a section which prohibits any city officer or employee from making a contract in which he has a financial interest. And then there was another one having to do with inappropriate conduct. This committee had gone ahead and prosecuted her for those ethical violations under its powers to do so, and had entered into a stipulation with her, giving her, in which she accepted certain punishments, which were the extent of what we could punish her for these particular violations. So in that sense, then, our job was over in regard to Miss Ellis. The thought was at the time when we were doing this, and we had none of you all here, nobody was here, the thought when we were doing this is that in regard to these particular violations, influencing a government decision in which the official has a financial benefit, that's a fairly egregious ethical breach. And the thought was, and we had some discussion, I had mentioned it at the end of it, that this person, by admitting these things, has really admitted that she engaged in corrupt conduct and has disgraced herself, and it would be unlikely that she would continue in San Francisco employment, that she would likely be fired. So the next step then was that it was in the court, the ball was in the court of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. And I had heard that they had not terminated her. So I was the one who introduced this resolution. I'm the one to blame for introducing this resolution. I've sat here tonight and I've listened to all of you, and I've listened to the message that you sent. It's not just a message that's a powerful message. It's a tsunami in terms of who this woman is, and in terms of what you think of her, and in terms of her importance, particularly in the minority community and in the black community. And I agree, based upon everything that you've said, that to go ahead and terminate Miss Ellis would be sending a terrible message to the city and county of San Francisco, particularly to minority individuals who want to be part of public service in San Francisco. It would be misperceived, and it would be understandably misperceived. It would be misperceived just in the way that many of you said. So in regard to this being some sort of hidden agenda or any sort of racism, Van Jones had it right. We stepped in it. That's what happened. And I want to withdraw the resolution.
I presume there is no objection from any of the other commissioners.
We have great courtesy and respect to say we feel your heart and we thank you. You've proven to be a gentleman of character and honor.
Thank you, Reverend Brown.
I would like to keep the policy discussion on the agenda for the purpose of ensuring that we don't have this kind of thing happen again, that we can all agree that we're not going in the future to undermine the Commission's authority to settle matters. So that will remain on the agenda. The specific proposal has been withdrawn by Commissioner Keene. The next item on the agenda is the complaint number 04.
I never met Mr. Kent, but I'm glad I met him tonight, because that is the kind of person
that will help us move forward, not backwards. I'm Reverend Aubrey Lewis. I'm one of the ministers of Dr. Brown's church, Third Baptist Church. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Lewis.
Good night.
I know. I wanted to say thanks a lot, Peter.
Nicely said.
You owe us each an hour and a half of our lives
no
back.
kidding.
That's 6 collective hours, Peter.
I told you when you nominated me for that position, I wasn't ready.
Perfect.
I got a learning
I just
curve.
didn't know how not ready you were.
Okay, then
It's certainly a much more interesting library meeting than I've had in a while. All right.
Oh yeah, he's like.
the next item on the agenda is ethics complaint 04-140303, Ray Hartz versus Luis Herrera, City Librarian. Mr. Herrera?
Mr. Hartz is not here and did not request a continuance. So I'm assuming we're just going to go ahead and...
We're going to go forward. Thank you for your patience, sir.
Sure. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Good evening. I'm Luis Herrera, City Librarian. And I trust you received my letter that gave background on this matter regarding showing cause for the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force an order of determination. Mr. Hart alleged that the respondent violated the Sunshine Ordinance by failing to provide equal access to members of the public regarding the library use of audiovisual materials during public comment.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to ask that the doors be closed so that we can actually hear you.
Sure.
Pretty much like every meeting.
Thank you.
So I'm going to try to highlight the elements because I know you've been very patient this evening. The Library Commission did not violate the Sunshine Ordinance because the Commission and their decision not to expend significant resources to make the necessary accommodations to modify the technology that the library uses in the correct auditorium was strictly on the basis of economics. The library, after Mr. Hartz did request via email to consider allowing public comment or use of audiovisuals during public comment, we did explore several options, including a very basic technology of having an overhead projector with transparencies. That did not work because it did not project for the commission and the audience to be able to view the audiovisual material. We explored further reconfiguration of the entire setup that we currently have in the Correct Auditorium. We also involved the engineering staff at our library. Our Director of Facilities, Roberto Lombardi, is here. If you need any more clarification on that. We consulted with the Department of Public Works. All said it would require expending upwards to $40,000 to change the reconfiguration. So currently, the library only allows staff and individuals that are invited as part of the commission agenda to present any AV materials. So Mr. Hartz filed a complaint with the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. That was heard in July of last year. They found that the Library Commission violated the Administrative Code Section 67.5 for abridging public comment by not allowing the audiovisual equipment, and the matter was referred to the Sunshine Task Force Compliance and Amendments Committee and referred back to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. As a result of the finding, as City Librarian, I brought the matter back to the Library Commission for discussion and possible action to allow the use of AV equipment. And there's a memo from the City Librarian to the Library Commission. It's dated August 12th of last year. We also sought the opinion of the City Attorney's Office, and the City Attorney's Office advised that whether the library provides access to AV equipment is a policy determination of the Library Commission because neither the Brown Act nor the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force gives members of the public the right to access during public comment to SFPL audiovisual technology. Specifically, Administrative Code Section 67.15 addresses the right of public comment, but does not prescribe the method, means, or mode of technology that the Library Commission must allow the public to use during public comment. The library did have a good conversation and discussion, and weighed all the various options on August 15th, and they voted 6-0 to not allow the use of audiovisual equipment for public comment, because allowing members of the public to use AV equipment during public comment would require the library to expend significant resources to make the accommodations necessary to modify the technology setup. The Library Commission did, however, make it clear that the public could bring printed copies of any presentations to the Library Commission and have them made available at the back of the room. And there is also attached Library Commission meeting minutes that describe the conversation and the ultimate action. In terms of discussion, I also want to emphasize that as city librarian, I follow the policy direction established by the Library Commission. City Charter Section 4.102 on boards and commissions stipulates, and there's two specific areas. One, that the commission or the unit of government of the executive branch of the city and county shall formulate, evaluate, and approve goals, objectives, and plans and programs, and set policies consistent with the overall goals of the city and county as established by the mayor and the Board of Supervisors to the adoption of city legislation. And after public hearing, that's item number 3, approve applicable departmental budgets or any budget modification or fund transfers requiring the approval of the Board of Supervisors. I brought the matter regarding the use of AV equipment to the attention of the Library Commission and provided information for them to fully discuss and deliberate on the matter and ultimately arrive at a decision. Their decision declining the use of audiovisual equipment by members of the public during public comment is their policy decision, and I have adhered to that policy. Therefore, I did not violate the Sunshine Ordinance. I also want to reiterate that the Library Commission did not violate Administrative Code 67.15A or B because the decision not to expend significant resources to make the necessary accommodations to modify the technology was based on fiscal matters. And finally, just to cut to the chase, I just want to emphasize that this is a policy decision that rests with the Library Commission, and that administrative code specifically addresses the right to public comments, does not prescribe the method, means, or mode of technology that the library must allow. For these reasons, we did not violate the administrative code, and the Library Commission has met its burden and shown that it did not violate the Sunshine Ordinance. Our Library Commission Secretary, Sue Blackman, is also here in case you need to have any further clarification on the matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Herrera from the Commission?
I have a question. I'm just not clear on what exactly Mr. Hartz was requesting. I mean, was it use of computer graphics or what?
My understanding is they wanted, during each public comment segment of the agenda, to show PowerPoints and to show audiovisual materials as part of public comment.
I see.
And we do not have the setup currently configured to allow for that.
Thank you.
Commissioner
As I
King?
understand it, Mr. Herrera, you have a podium for, I take it, the staff when it makes its presentation to the commission. And then there's a separate podium like there is here,
Right.
Where the public makes their comment.
That is absolutely correct.
Right.
The current-
Now, and your audio-visual equipment is on that podium for the staff.
That is correct.
Now, you said that what's shown on the audio-visual is whatever has been prepared by the staff?
That is correct.
And is there something that some public group can also have shown at that time?
No, the only time that we have additional audiovisual equipment is when it's part of the agenda. For example, we've had some construction programs and an architect is invited to present as part of the discussion that will take place during the commission.
How about, I think Mr. Hart said something about that Friends of the Library occasionally make presentations.
Again, that's done under the city librarian's report when there is a standing item that is agendized, and I invite the executive director, and I present any audiovisual showing the fiscal matters related to that support group.
But what about if some organization is opposed to the item and you've given them notice and they say, we want you to put on your audio visuals the same, our position that is on the contrary? Would it be done? Or has it ever been done?
No, that has not been done.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Keene?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on Commissioner Rennie's points, because I think you do have significant problems here in regard to the way you're currently doing things. And in regard to your letter to Mr. Hartz dated May 5th, you say, currently the commission allows only SFPL staff and individuals and organizations invited to make presentations to the commission to use the library's computers to connect to its audio-visual equipment. So you do invite individuals and you do invite organizations to make presentations, and you allow them to use this equipment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's part of the agenda.
So the problem you have, and just as one who teaches constitutional law, I can tell you is that by virtue of having this discussion, you have a public forum that has been set up there. And you're quite right when you disagree with Mr. Hartz that you're not discriminating on the basis of viewpoint. It's not viewpoint-based, which would be a First Amendment problem. But you are discriminating on the basis of content. You're allowing certain groups with certain content, those groups you invite, and other organizations who make presentations to have the use of these facilities, but other members of the public, you don't. So what that is, that's content discrimination. And under the law relating to public forums, the only way you can justify content discrimination is by meeting a standard. I don't want to be too much my professor hat here on, is by meeting a standard called strict scrutiny. That's the only way you can present your presentations in any feasible way. Your main argument is, well, if we allow these public groups to do this, it's going to cost us some money. Strict scrutiny is never going to be satisfied by the fact it's going to cost you something. So you are indeed, I'm not saying you're doing this intentionally, but you are violating the First Amendment here by making this content-based. If you're doing this for these people whom you're inviting, you have to do it for other members of the public as well, who are going to make presentations. Otherwise, I see you are in violation of the First Amendment.
Well, may I, with all due respect, just simply, I would argue that when we invite any other member, it's because it's been formalized as part of the agenda, and they are either part of the presenters or we are presenting that content. It is not discriminating members of the public from offering public comment in any shape, form, or fashion.
But the manner in which they can present it is significantly inhibited from those, as opposed to those whom you've invited. The ones you've invited, they can use the facilities. The ones you haven't invited can't use the facilities. So they're not able to get across the message in the same fashion as the presenters whom you've invited. That's a First Amendment problem for you.
Commissioner Andrews?
Thank you, Commissioner Keene, for framing what was rolling around in my head all day within constitutional law. I was struggling with the fact that the equipment is there and it exists, and it is being utilized by certain individuals, but not available for others. So what I wanted to hear was a little bit more about the alternatives that you explored and why they didn't work, and how aggressive and rigorous were you with that exploration?
Sure. And I'll also ask our Director of Facilities to explain that. But we started with a very basic transparency, and the setup simply did not allow for it to show on the projection screen for both the commission and the public. So that was disavowed. The second thing is we explored reconfiguring the podium that's at the public end so that we would allow a laptop to be used for members of the public to use that laptop for AV presentations. That is the matter where it would require some ADA accommodations, some recabling, because as I mentioned earlier, the AV equipment is on the stage behind the dais of the commission. So we certainly explored that, brought in contractors to give us estimates on cost, and determined that it could be done, and that would require an expenditure of about $40,000 to do that.
So here's where I have a problem. So you thought it was worthy enough of an idea to actually explore it, but when cost came into play, and it made it cost prohibitive, that ultimately was the determinant of you not doing it. Different than it's just something as a policy we are not going to do. So you did entertain it enough that it was an idea.
Absolutely.
Exploring.
Yes, and brought it back. The commission engaged in a conversation, and it was a policy decision of whether to expend the resources on that. And again, as I mentioned, it was not my call at that stage. I did due diligence in bringing it to the commission for full discussion on whether they were willing to spend the funds to reconfigure to allow for that. And also weighed in on the city attorney's judgment of whether we were violating any or abridging any public right of speech by virtue of not allowing AV for public comment. And based on those factors, the commission took action not to allow that. And their recommendation was to allow for any of the presentations to be printed, copied, and made available at the back of the room for the public. So, again, we feel strongly that it does not abridge anybody's right for public comment. It is a significant expenditure. And again, I do not have the, based on the charter, the simple ability to say we're going to incur that expenditure. So I feel I'm between a rock and a hard place in terms of not feeling that we're violating that sunshine ordinance.
Okay. I'm still a little stuck, and so maybe you can help me out. You're standing on, I think it's 67.15 A and B on the policy, which would, to me would have been enough to say we already think that we're providing an opportunity and access for the public and to the public, and there is no need to even investigate this. There's no reason to even go down this road because we're going to stand on the merits of this of this code. So it seems like a slightly inconsistent to stand solidly on this, but yet still investigate opportunities or options.
Let me qualify that. I, as a city librarian, felt compelled to at least explore that. At the point when I sent a response to Mr. Hartz saying that in my estimation, my judgment, I declined his request, then he filed the sunshine ordinance complaint. At that compliance committee, when they suggested that we take it back to the commission, I did just that. That's why it came back. And I also felt that because of the expenditure involved, it would be their judgment, their call, and policy determination to do that. So I felt I was, again, doing due diligence in having a full public hearing on that matter. And they did that. And again, it was a 6-0 vote not to do it because they felt they were not in violation, and they got some city attorney advice. And also, I mean, both the Brown Act and the Sunshine Ordinance do not prescribe the specific method of allowing the use of AV equipment during public comment. So they felt that they were going even beyond that by allowing the printing of any audiovisual equipment. And I want to qualify that when we invite, and it's really not an invitation, it's a very prescribed, agendized item for any presentations. For example, during our branch library improvement program, when we had peer reviews and we had a contractor sitting in the dais reviewing schematics and all that, those are the presentations that certainly are allowed for the public to have full disclosure on the projects that are at hand. And when there's requests on fiscal matters, either budget related to the support that comes from the Friends of the Library, those are the two examples that I can give you. There has been limited additional individuals invited to present. Again, it's a very managed agenda that the Commission has prerogative to do.
Commissioner Keene, did you have another question?
Yes, I don't want to I don't want to repeat myself, but that's simply not good enough. I don't know what the city attorney told you, but whoever told you that you were okay on this, they're wrong. You cannot discriminate on the basis of subject matter or content. Viewpoint, you're not discriminating. Mr. Hartz is saying, well, you don't like our viewpoint, and therefore you're not. I don't buy that. So we'll take that off the table.
But Commissioner, we're not discriminating on content.
The presenters whom you invite, who are presenting their content, they're using the equipment. The presenters who are the other presenters whom you allow staff and individuals or individuals or organizations invited to make presentations to the Commission. That's your language. There are individuals and organizations invited to make presentations to the Commission. They're allowed to use the equipment. The rest of the public isn't.
And it isn't during public comment.
They're making presentations. We're talking about presentations here.
Commissioner Keene, I will say that we often have presenters who speak much longer than the 3 minutes allocated for public comment. It's for the benefit of the Commission. It's to introduce an item. It's to explain a situation. So it's not, I don't think we need to necessarily hold presenters to equal access as public comment. One of the things that's distinctly, in the actual ordinance says that you can't do it on the basis of reasonable time constraints. So if your view was accurate, then you couldn't allow anybody to speak, invited or otherwise, for longer than 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair, actually, the language is much more guided than that. It says the only way you can limit things is on the basis of time constraints. That's specific.
Right, but
so let me just finish. Since the language is specifically saying the only way you can limit presenters is on the basis of time constraints, they're limiting presenters on the basis of whether or not they can use the equipment. So they're violating the language in this limitation itself. They're going to something other than time constraints and saying we're going to limit it in another way. You can't use the equipment to make the presentation. To me, this is just black letter law in regard to the fact that it is content-based, subject matter-based discrimination in a public forum. You can't do it.
Well, I think Mr. Herrera's point is that there's a difference between presenters and public comment. And in public comment, I agree with you entirely that it's got to be equal for everybody. If somebody in public comment can use the AV equipment, then everybody's got to be able to use it. But just as a presenter can speak for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour, which is much longer than you can in public comment, the rules are not the same for public comment and for presenters.
We're not talking about time.
But time is the one thing that they do say you can't do it on. And my point is that even on that, you are permitted to discriminate between those who present and those giving public comment.
Don't we already have examples of folks who are very adept at participating in public comment who use AV all the time? We have it here. We have it at the Board of Soups. So it's not like we don't see this every day.
Right.
So that's why I'm wondering again. And I agree with Commissioner Keene that I think it's just time that can be the limitation, not necessarily the AV equipment, because I see many great presentations that are done in 3 minutes.
Right, but
meaning
fair enough.
Meaning that should be allowed just as much for the invited guest or the staff or the sophisticated public who is willing to do that.
We have, in City Hall, we have the equipment built in
Right.
to allow
That is correct.
somebody come in with their laptop and put it on our screen.
I agree.
And their problem is that they're in a different building, and the staff presentation, which is where the AV is, the only way you could do it would be to have the public comment come to the staff thing. And I think where I agree with Commissioner Keene to a certain extent is that if you have an item on the agenda that you are allowing some outside party to use your AV equipment because they're, say it's your architect or whatever else it is, if somebody of the public came to you and said, we would like to, in response to what they're going to say, we would like to show how the drawing should be different. The only way now they can do it is come in with hard copy of something and hold it up and put it in the record. And it would seem to me that if you invite somebody in support and somebody comes to you and says, we would like to be invited, even though we're not going to support you, and
But
you
it's-
say, no, we won't invite you because you aren't going to be supporting us. That's the problem.
No, I understand what you're saying, Commissioner, but it's not a matter of supporting, it's not taking any stance on any given issue. It's simply providing the information that then the commission deliberates on.
So can I ask this?
Commissioner Ham.
Well, first of all, I just want to bring this up as a former member of the Library Commission. First of all, I think we're being misled a little bit. The language of invited presenters, I think, is misleading. And my recollection is that AV presentations are only as used to inform the commission on the business at hand at the library. And because so much of what the library does has to do with construction or, architectural renderings, the budgetary presentation which you make, that's how the AV equipment, as I recall, has been used. So I think it's misleading to say that it's, you invited people who use it. So, if you're inviting outside guests to make presentations, that's one thing, but I don't ever recall you having outside presenters just doing a presentation about something. And as far as Friends of the Library are a part of the business, day-to-day business at the library in terms of their support for the library and all of the cooperative projects which they have with the library. So that stands to reason that there is a need for presentations. But aside from that, I have a question about what other commissions do and what kind of a precedent it's going to set if we feel that the Library Commission should make, special arrangements for the public to use the AV, then what we're saying is that every single commission, including our own, should have access to either the, whatever AV technology is being used. So I don't know where that takes us, but I think that has to be considered.
Commissioner, if I can respond just in part. First of all, I do concur with you that the choice of language is not about inviting any member of the public to present. And then secondarily, in looking at other commissions that are outside City Hall do not allow for audiovisual during public comment. Two examples are the Housing Authority and the Health Department. So you're correct that it would set a precedent for all the others outside City Hall to do so.
Commissioner Andrews?
Well, it seems to me that we were talking, now I'm going down, just getting to the dollars. We were talking about cost, and the $40,000 keeps rattling around in my mind, and I was wondering if we could split the difference in this, at least maybe go back and revisit it. And for the cost of, and if it's about just basically heightening the level of presentation, not to this degree, but an overhead projector and a screen that could cost $5,000 could very well move the needle in some kind of way. And that's why I wanted to hear how many options you fully explored to ultimately see if you could satisfy this request.
Commissioner, I think we'd be willing to go back and explore that overhead projector concept. I know that when we first explored that, sometimes it raises some other issues, but certainly we certainly want to be respectful to the process and to, again, more due diligence. But again, the $40,000 expenditure is at the bottom end of it, and we've also had conversations with the Mayor's Office of Disability. It triggers some other major modifications in the auditorium if we needed to literally take that undertaking. Roberto, do you want to speak to that? Just briefly.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Roberto Lombardi. I'm the Facilities Director at the Library. I have some experience in this regard. I actually worked on this building where you have very, very good accommodations for ADA provisions. The library, unfortunately, was built earlier than this building was remodeled, and so when the Correct Auditorium was constructed, there were some rather hasty things done at the end, as the regulations concerning ADA really hadn't been adopted yet in the city. So one of the challenges we face now is the Correct literally has a podium which looks, it's about, say, a quarter of the size of this podium, and was rather hastily installed. Some seats were removed just before the building opened. People said, oh my goodness, we haven't made accommodation here for public comment. So the trouble is that when we do these projects now, it's under the very, very close scrutiny of the Mayor's Office of Disability. And Luis mentioned that $40,000 might be a low estimate. So when I spoke with the Susan Misner, who was the director of MOD, she pointed out a situation that's not untypical, that once you actually start doing the analysis, you may wind up with a very large project, going all the way up to including the possibility that when we install an ADA-compatible podium, because we're talking about a podium that has a lot of equipment in it, has to be able to rise and lower. That's what we put in the Bayview Community Center recently. You start looking at the clearances around it, all of a sudden, if you start wiping out the seating behind the podium, you can actually go as far as triggering a complete redo of all of the seating in the Correct, because I'm not saying that would definitely happen, but in our experience, and I spent many years in DPW and construction management, so I have some experience with this. Many times MOD doesn't really know exactly what is going to be triggered, and they can't really tell you till they have the drawings. The architect has really designed exactly what's going to be there, and they do part of their job is to do some interpretation of the codes. So the concern is, from my end as facilities director, is that it is actually difficult to ascertain exactly how extensive the work could be, but it could go all the way up to, if you start removing seats, that MOD, per Susan Misner, could require equivalent seating in the auditorium. And the only way to do equivalent seating is basically you have to remove all of the seating. Equivalent seating, if you don't know, is rather than having the ADA accommodations at the front or at the back, it's an auditorium where you see the accommodations scattered throughout the auditorium in a kind of an even way, so that there really is an ability for people who need accommodation to not feel that there's only one part they can be in. So I just wanted you to know that it is kind of a big technical problem and a little difficult to nail down.
So, Mr. Lombardi, what about Mr. Andrews' proposal of having just a simple overhead projector next to the podium, no changing to the podium, put a screen?
The problem we get into, I mean, I know it's very difficult for people not in the construction business to believe how difficult some of this stuff can be, but you are all very familiar with the city's systems too. The problem is that we can't just run wires from the podium across the floor. That for sure is going to be an ADA problem. So we have a concrete floor. We wind up having to core through the floor. You wind up having to run conduits under the floor. You wind up coring back up under the stage to get over to where the rest of the equipment is. And it gets worse because at the main library, you can't core the floors without x-raying the floors before you do that, because they're loaded with electrical conduit, piping, reinforcing steel. The next thing you know, you have to call up an engineer from DPW to tell you how to detail this 3-inch hole that you have to make. So that's why these things always become more complicated than one would like. And
any other questions for Mr. Lombardi?
So I just want to be clear that you've already fully then explored that. You're just
We explored the option that I just described, which is that can we get wire, data wire, power, because we'd have to run power out there, and then data wire back, and we explored the option of running in, and for the overhead too. So we explored that option of getting some connectivity between that area and the podium that is up on the stage. But we didn't, at that point, we had the information that if we do an ADA podium up there, there were some other issues that could come up. But at that point, the exploration, we didn't go further with it. We just got the estimate on what would it cost if we just had to power up the podium that we have right there. I hope that's helpful. I don't know if there are any other questions I can answer there.
It's helpful. I just wanted to be clear that I wasn't, you were talking data, and I hadn't even gotten
data and power.
I hadn't even gotten that far. I was just wondering about power.
Yeah,
Just
we would
for
want to run data back for the AV.
Like our elementary school teachers taught us.
It's so much easier when you do it. It's a pity the building wasn't built a few years later because, again, when the technology is there, but if you're building new, it's really a simple matter to put it in.
Are there battery-powered overhead projectors?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because I would really have to look to the expertise of our IT division to really tell me that. I know that technology changes a lot too. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Lombardi? Okay. Is there anybody here speaking on behalf of the complainant? Okay, Mr. Hartz is not here. Sir, we're not taking public comment yet.
I understand, sir.
So are you an attorney representing Mr. Hartz?
No.
Okay, then we are still conducting the hearing portion, and we will, before we vote on the matter, we'll ask for public comment.
Even though Ray is not here?
Right.
Okay.
Commissioners, discussion on the...
Could I just make sure I know what the procedure is? This comes to us from the Sunshine Task Force.
Right.
And they have made a finding that the library is not in compliance, and the way we are dealing with it here, the burden is upon the library to convince us that they are. They had the burden of proof to show us that they are. And we have to find that they have convinced us in order to...
Can I modify what you said?
Sure.
It's not the library. It is Mr. Herrera personally, according to the referral from the Sunshine Commission. They initially held the commission, the library commission, in violation. Then they had a new hearing, and then they ended up just charging Mr. Herrera.
Just Mr. Herrera.
That's what, as I read, it says the written order on October 2nd, 2013, the task force again heard the matter. It found Louis Herrera in violation of the Sunshine Ordinance, as determined in its order, and referred the matter to the Ethics Commission. So that one might think there's a fairly serious question as to whether they have the proper body against whom to charge.
I agree.
Because Mr. Herrera is an employee, and
I think proceeding against the library is one thing, but proceeding against Mr. Herrera is a whole different situation as to whether we have the proper party before us for us to take action. I think Commissioner Rennie raises a...
Well, the referral is against Mr. Herrera, so he's the proper authority. It's the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force found him in violation of 67.15 Sections A and B, which deal exclusively with public comment. So the question the Commission has to decide is, was the task force correct in making the determination that Mr. Herrera violated those two sections?
Well, I don't think I'd have any problem making the decision that the task force was correct in terms of the library not being in compliance. I have some hesitation in regard to putting it all on the head of an employee of the library, and I'm troubled by that.
So on the procedure, I agree with you that the clearly the Library Commission voted on this matter and decided that they were not going to make the accommodation. To the extent there is a liable party, it doesn't seem to me like it is Mr. Herrera in this instance.
I agree.
On the substance, I do have some concern with a policy decision that basically says that a presenter is the same as a member who's speaking during public comment. I mean, I think that sets up a whole host of potential issues down the road. I mean, how do we then limit a speaker to any of the how do we not limit them to any of the other constraints in public comment? And I'm as a policy matter think, and as a matter of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, do not think that the law there is meant to cover those types of presentations. Now, whether we reach that or not, I guess is a different issue. But
I disagree with you on that point. But on the point of who's the proper party before us, I don't think we have the proper party before us.
Commissioner Han?
I don't understand. Why is it not sufficient to be able to hand out material to the public that they can look at while you make your presentation or your comments as a member of the public? It seems to me that given the many problematic buildings in which commissions have to perform their duties, makes the most sense without having to create special AV equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So I would think that being able to hand out complete packets for someone's presentation should meet the requirement of providing the information to the public and having a fair hearing.
I agree. Commissioner Rennie, you wanted to say something?
Is it appropriate to make a motion at this point?
Yes.
Well, let's see if there's other comment from commissioners. No? Any further comment? Should we take public comment? Or do you want to?
Yes, I could.
Before a motion is made?
Comment, yeah.
Okay, public comment on this matter.
Dr. Derek Kerr. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the assumption that the members of the public are somehow inferior to any experts that you or a commission might want to engage in giving a presentation. So it really depends on how much you value the public. And the ability to show a table or a graph gives one more power to express an idea. So there has to be limits to conduct meetings. There has to be some structure, but the public should not be made inferior to architects, experts who come and speak to you. Thanks.
That's a good point, Dr. Kerr.
First and foremost, we have to have an understanding about three individuals. One is Ray Hartz, another is Peter Warfield, and James Shafee, all of which are astute, stellar individuals who are very well versed with the digital medium. Now, most of your deliberation was not on point. And it wasn't on point because what the city is doing, not only at the commissions, but even at the Board of Supervisors, is depriving advocates, people with knowledge, not giving them sufficient time. Like, for example, if you go to the Board of Supervisors, they limit it to 2 minutes. If they say me, they're limited to 1 minute. That's not funny. Ray, Mr. Hertz, much like myself, are very well versed with the Freedom of Information Act, he served in the Navy, I served in the Army. We feel strongly the need to express ourselves with the best technology available. Not once have you commissioners mentioned any equipment that's wireless. Do you know of any laptop that's wireless that can perform all that you stated? So we have an expert or a facility manager here who says about digging under the concrete floor, installing a pipe, and making it and blowing this out of proportion. Any wireless laptop can perform that action. Finally, Mr. Herrera has been charged on other issues, like donations, which taint advocates not trusting him and not trusting the friends of the library. I don't go for those meetings, but I read about it. I do not trust the friends of the library. And I've seen Mr. Herrera here taking a position to defend himself unnecessarily, wasting our time. There can be a solution. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hand.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, with regard to the comment about holding the public inferior, I definitely would have to say that that is not our point of view, and I think tonight was a perfect example of how important public comment is in terms of swaying a commission and helping to make a decision. So I don't think that is what this discussion is about. I do have a question about the Wi-Fi aspect. Is that something that is feasible since it's so commonplace now?
I do think that it may be feasible. We went with the best advice we have from IT. Now, I'm not trying to draw a direct parallel, but I just subscribed to MLB Premium because I love the Giants. And the first night I got it on there on my little Blu-ray where I have Netflix, and it kind of went like this and then went in the middle of the game. And so I can tell you that the opinion of our IT people was that as Wi-Fi stands right now, if we want to do reliable presentations, their advice would be hardwire it. And we still do that at the library. We offer both. You'll notice at the main library we have tons of Wi-Fi for you, but we also have tons of hard jacks. I can't tell you, that as we speak, there isn't somebody who's just come out with a product last week that'll blast Wi-Fi from here to the library. But our best advice we have had so far is that if we want it to be reliable and we want to not have those kinds of interruptions, it is still advisable by the experts to hardwire for the moment. I don't know what the future will hold. I think we could all guess that eventually it'll all be wireless, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Thank you. Just to follow up, I do, going back to what I said earlier about, or my question about how other commissions handle such requests, I think that anything that we consider has to be something that should apply to all commissions. And I repeatedly see the Library Commission and its issues coming before us. I don't know to what we can attribute that, but I find it curious that there is so much attention paid to the library and its commission and its activities. But maybe we need to just explore what is possible, not only at the library, but with other commissions as well, including our own, for that matter.
I have a question for the city attorney. If we were to find that there was a violation, but that it wasn't Mr. Herrera himself, is that feasible? I mean, does the city attorney have a view on whether the commission, the library commission, or the library is the appropriate party in light of the history of this matter?
Well, I think that the decision currently before you is whether to find Mr. Herrera personally has committed a non-willful violation. I think it would be beyond the scope of what's currently before you to, to come to a decision about whether the Library Commission has committed that violation. So I don't know if that answers your question completely.
I guess what I've ineloquently asked is, could the commission be a body named in a complaint and something enforced against the commission? I'm just wondering, is Mr. Herrera always going to be the named respondent in a situation where something is brought against the library, given his position there?
I don't actually know the answer to that. I mean, I would assume that it is possible to name the commission as a whole, given that in order to find a violation against Mr. Herrera, it has to, the conclusion has to be that it was a personal violation that he committed of the Sunshine Ordinance. So I would leave it at that.
When somebody files a complaint at Sunshine, the person filing the complaint names the respondent or respondents, which is, generally how things proceed. One of the things that hasn't come to this commission yet, and is observably possibly a problem for the future, is the task force does sometimes take it upon itself to change who the respondent is, with or without the permission of the complainant. That's not an issue for discussion tonight, but it may be an issue eventually.
I see.
A couple meetings back, maybe 4 months ago, we talked about the respondent who was the key person who was to represent the organization. And I think it goes a little bit more to your point, Commissioner Hartz. It feels like it's a little bit of a mix of that, because a couple months ago we had a person in front of us, and the question was, is this person representing the entity? Is this the key person who should be representing as the respondent the entity, or is it the person themselves? So I wasn't necessarily sure if Mr. Herrera was the spokesperson for the library, or would there be someone else if the library were named? Would we still find Mr. Herrera sitting here next month? I guess that's the question.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that is, in some ways, the question. I mean, although it does appear here that he has been personally named, but as a practical matter, it may not be different. Although I see some conferring going on.
Yeah.
Is that a question for Mr. Herrera?
It's almost vague.
I think that was, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I'm looking at 67.34, and it deals with willful failure. It says it deals with willful failures of official misconduct, and it states that willful failures have to be directed at individuals. It's silent as to non-willful failures. And then when you look at Chapter 2 of the Ethics Commission's regulations regarding the Sunshine Ordinance, in Section 1A, 1B, it refers to non-willful violations of the Sunshine Ordinance by elected officials, department heads, or city officers and employees. So it doesn't appear to contemplate the possibility of a non-willful violation by a commission as an entirety.
Or by the library, for example.
Or by an entity, right?
So it sounds like it's a little unclear as to whether there would be anybody else that a complainant could name in a situation such as this.
Right. I think that's right. I mean, I don't know whether it's possible, for instance, to name the librarian, if the librarian is named in his capacity as the sort of representative of the library. Maybe the fact that it's a non-willful violation means that it's possible that that's what's happened. It seems ambiguous from the complaint itself. It seems like the complaint explicitly names the librarian in his capacity as an individual.
Commissioner Rennie, you had a
motion? I would make a motion that the commission finds that Mr. Herrera has sustained his burden of proof to showing that there was no violation of the Sunshine Ordinance.
Is there a second? I second. Commissioner Hand?
I would like to ask to be recused from this vote, as a former library commissioner, so that I don't want there to be any appearance of a conflict of interest.
Kind of should have done that before we started discussing the question.
Oh, okay. So what does that mean?
No, I think
Did I
you
have to vote?
can still do it. But
I think there would have to be a vote. A vote on recusal.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would have been preferable to do it before, but I think
I see.
if the commission feels like it is appropriate to recuse you, it's better to do it now than not at all.
I'd move that Commissioner Hand be permitted to abstain if she wishes to abstain.
She has to be recused, not abstained.
Excuse me, recused.
I'll second it.
Public comment?
Yeah.
Public comment?
Yes. You operate under Robert Rules of Order. The chair can never, I'm sorry. Because of the fact you commissioners operate on the Robert Rules of Order, the chair cannot make a motion, nor can he second the motion. It has to be first and second by one of the other commissioners. Thank you very much.
Is that true?
That I do not know. I actually don't know. But I mean, it sounds like there's someone else to second it. Or actually, I guess that's not true.
Okay, well,
no, I don't think that can be right at all, because otherwise, I don't think that can be right. So I'm going to say that's incorrect.
Okay. Any other public comment on Commissioner Hand's request to recuse herself? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, hearing none. Commissioner Hand is recused. You know, I mean, I wonder at this point whether the most productive thing to do might be to ask the city attorney, the librarian, to go back and explore whether there is other accommodation that can be made, whether that's wireless, whether that's battery-operated projector with a screen. It sounds like those items have not been fully explored. If the commission is open to that, maybe we can defer the matter. Otherwise, I stand by my second of Commissioner Rennie's motion.
I guess I believe that suggestion is not necessarily germane to the motion. And although I might agree with it, but I think that we ought to rule on the motion, and then we can make some decision as to whether or not we want to give Mr. Herrera some guidance as to what we think he ought to be doing.
Fair enough. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. It passes 3-1.
Okay, the motion passes 3-1. I would strongly urge the librarian to try to figure out some way that this can be resolved. Even if it's not a perfect solution, I would try it and at least see what you can do. Clearly, you heard some significant concern about whether this was appropriate and how the public is reacting to this. So, any other?
I would join in that. Obviously, I mean, we all understand that a visual presentation is more persuasive, at least to the public sitting behind, where they see it rather than a handout, which they may or may not get a copy of. And I don't know if there's no power to the lectern, and there's no outlet that's close enough so that you could run an extension cord to allow them to have a transparency type and a roll-up screen that just doesn't have to be very, very elaborate, but just something that would allow the public speaker, if he or she had something that they wanted to show to the commission and to the public, what they're, to reinforce their arguments, I think it would be helpful.
I concur, and I think it would go a long way in the ongoing discussion that you're having, and it would, in its very low level, introduce technology. Even though we've had overhead screens for quite some time, still, it's something that would move the needle, and I think would be a good faith effort along with elevating public comment and abiding by the time constraints as well. I think you could still do all of those things.
Commissioner Keene.
Additionally, if you ever find yourself having to justify content discrimination, which is what you're doing, one of the things that you would have a burden of doing is showing that you explored any less onerous options in order to get by with it. So you'd have that burden upon yourself to show that, well, we looked at all of these other ways, and this is the only way we could do it. That's the only thing that would pass the kind of strict scrutiny test that you'd need for content discrimination.
Okay, thank you for your time. The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action on the selection of random audits for 2013.
So generally in March each year, we look back to the prior election to see what number of random audits we will do for that election. Any candidates who receive public financing automatically get a full comprehensive audit. We also do targeted audits based on other factors. So under the law, then, we are required to do a random selection for the remainder. Staff has determined that we have the resources to do 5 audits of randomly selected committees for this coming year from the 2013 election. Under a previously adopted commission policy, we don't generally audit committees that raise or spend less than $10,000. And then we have 3 different audit pools to choose from the rest. Committees that raise between $10,000 and $50,000, $50,000 to $100,000, and above $100,000. In general, the Commission has expressed preferences that we do more audits of the higher dollar value committees than the lower one. So out of the 5 audits that we are proposing to do for this year, we determined that we would do 1 from the lowest pool, 1 from the middle pool, and 3 from the largest pool. And you have the statistics and how they play out in front of you. We've prepared a drawing box with these different categories in them. We generally ask a member of the public to do the drawing for us so that we add sort of a level of openness to that. So if the Commission has
questions or comments from the Commission? Public comment?
Dr. Derek Kerr, how do we know that every agency has a slip inside that box?
Because they're going to be read off by the member of the public who helps us to draw them.
I see. Okay.
Any other public comment?
Okay. So Shaista Sheikh from our staff is going to administer this. Can we have a volunteer from the public? Anyone? Dr. Carr? No? All you need to do is read off the names, put them in the box, read the names, fold them, put them in a box, and then draw one out. Can you pull the microphone so that we can hear you?
So let's begin with activity level 1. What we'll do is we have these pieces of paper here. You'll be reading the names off of these pieces of paper. I can read them for you, or you can read them and then you can check them off.
Read it and I'll check it off.
And then what I'll do is I'll hand it to you so you can confirm what I read is correct, and you can fold it up and put it in the box.
Right.
All right. So the first one is Sierra Club San Francisco Bay Chapter against BNC. And the ID number is 1361187. Would you help us fold these and dump them in the box? Thank you. The next one is Cisneros for Treasurer 2013, 1355788. Right. Building Owners and Managers Association of San Francisco Political Action Committee, ballot issues, a.k.a. BOMA SF PAC ballot issues. Okay. San Francisco Labor and Neighbor Member Education Political Issues Committee. I'm going to read the ID number because this organization has many committees. 970630. Committee for a Brighter San Francisco Future, 1362060. Latino Democratic Club San Francisco, 1342652. Standing Up for Working Families, a coalition of teachers, nurses, firefighters, public employees, and healthcare advocates, 1329001. Okay. San Francisco Young Democrats, 961946. Plan C San Francisco PAC, 1245538. San Francisco Municipal Executives Association PAC, 1271203. National Union of Healthcare Workers Candidate Committee for Quality Patient Care and Union Democracy, 1318200. Asian Pacific Democratic Club Political Action Committee, 931558. Okay. Building Owners and Managers Association of San Francisco Political Action Committee Independent Expenditures PAC, a.k.a. BOMA SF PAC IE, 870449. Golden Gate Restaurant Association PAC, 932123. San Francisco Building and Construction Trades Council Political Organization of Workers for Employee Rights, Power PAC, 1237101. Harvey Milk LGBT Democratic Club PAC, 921683. San Francisco Alliance for Jobs and Sustainable Growth PAC, 1341796. All right. San Francisco, sponsored by San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, 891575. So we just read all the names of committees that fell in activity level 1, and according to the staff memo, we're going to be selecting one committee from this level. So without looking at the committees, I'd like a member of the public to select one committee. Yeah. Okay. Would you please read the name of that committee?
Latino Democratic Club, San Francisco, ID number 1342652, committee type RCP, financial activity level 1.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
All right. So we're going to move on to activity level 2. Would you like to continue doing this? Or would you like to switch places? Okay. All right. Yeah, let's dispose of those. Let me just empty them out. So, Dennis Herrera for City Attorney 2013, 1355781. Alice B. Toklas, Lesbian and Gay Democratic Club PAC, 842018. San Francisco Apartment Association Political Action Committee, 84302. San Francisco Police Officers Association Issues PAC, 1317554. Committee on Jobs Government Reform Fund, 982683. So now we will be selecting one committee from activity level 2.
San Francisco Apartment Association Political Action Committee, Committee ID 840002, Committee Type RCP, Financial Activity Level 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. The Committee on Fair Drug Pricing dash Fair/San Francisco, yes on D, major funding by AIDS Healthcare Foundation, 1353742. Okay. San Franciscans United to Protect Retirees and Taxpayers, yes on A coalition of labor, business, and retirees with major support from the San Francisco Police Officers Association Issues PAC, 1359143. No wall on the northeast waterfront, no on B and C, supported by local property owners, tenants, neighbors, and environmentalists. Top contributors include Richard and Barbara Stewart, 1348226. San Franciscans for Parks, Jobs, and Housing, yes on B and C, with major support from Pacific Waterfront Partners, LLC, Cahill Contractors Incorporated, Building and Labor, 1356686. Katie Tang for Supervisor 2013. Carmen Chu for Assessor 2013. Protect Our Benefits 990028. San Francisco Labor Council Labor and Neighbor PAC 941562. UA Local 38 COPE Fund 746875. This level, you'll be selecting 3 committees. Yes.
San Francisco for Parks, Jobs, and Housing, yes on B and C, with major support from Pacific Waterfront Partners, LLC, Cahill Contractors, Inc., Building and Labor, ID number 1356686. Committee type, BMC, financial level 3. No walls on the northwest waterfront. No on B and C, supported by local property owners, tenants, neighbors, and environmentalists. Top contributors included Richard and Barbara Stewart. At Committee ID 1348226. Committee type BMC, financial activity level 3. Protect Our Benefits. Committee ID 990028, Committee Type RCP, Financial Level, Activity Level 3. Thank you. You're more than welcome.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding how to handle settlement agreements approved under the Commission's enforcement process. And Mr. Keene has withdrawn the specific resolution, but I do think it's worth some brief discussion on the policy issue. Mr. St. Croix, would you like to introduce the matter?
Okay. As a matter of policy, this has given the staff a great deal of discomfort. The idea that we would revisit a settlement agreement, we think, contradicts the purpose of a settlement agreement. In particular, the settlement agreement itself contains language that says a stipulation will be the final disposition of the matter. There is certainly language that can be put into settlement agreements when we bring them before the Commission, and perhaps the Commission doesn't think they go far enough. But to actually reopen them obviously created a hornet's nest in a specific case here. But we also think if the Commission were to do this in any case, that it would be very difficult to negotiate future settlement agreements, because the respondents would very clearly say, why should I enter a settlement if I know you can just bring it up again someday? And so that's the crux of our concerns, and setting aside the individual case that's been put aside, we think this is a troubling avenue for the Commission to consider.
I would just respond briefly that, again, certainly not going into the individual situation we had tonight. I did not see this as reopening any matter. I saw this as a matter in which we had done our job, and clearly, based upon the findings, the particular agency here was under an obligation to do something. And we were taking up a separate matter relating to what I saw as the ethical failure of another agency, another city agency, to do its job, which is under our mandate. That's why I put in that whereas language, that we have that mandate to make sure that the departments of government operate ethically, and that the public also has our recommendations, and that we educate the public as to the ethical obligations of other departments. I did not see this, I still don't see this, as in terms of that stipulation, as precluding us from going forward and saying some other agency had an obligation now to do something ethically. They didn't do it. We, as the Ethics Commission, see that as an ethical failure. If there is a finality to something, I agree. I didn't see this as reopening anything that had been made final. It had moved on to another level.
Commissioner Andrews.
Could we have, within the stipulation, more clearly outlined what we thought should happen, disciplinary action, that we would only agree to the stipulation if indeed, and not necessarily saying that it would be termination, but it would be the fullest extent of whatever disciplinary action were to be taken, or even have an understanding of what that could be while we were in the middle of the settlement agreement?
In my opinion, that we'd be better off doing that in the future in order to make sure that we have indeed finalized something to the extent that my fellow commissioners are uncomfortable that it was finalized and that this was reopening it. So some language might be added that might address the problem in the future so that it wouldn't come up.
And I guess I could just add, if there was a stipulation before the commission that you did not agree with because you felt that there should be some recommendation, one course of action would be to reject the stipulation or propose an amendment to the stipulation, but that stipulation would then have to be approved by whoever the respondent was. There's nothing that would preclude you from doing that.
And we probably couldn't, in the stipulation, mandate any sort of disciplinary action by the department head, because the stipulation is just between us and the respondent, right, or the other party.
Right, and the range of possible disciplinary options here did not include discipline. You did have the authority to, make a recommendation to the PUC or whoever, but I think the best practice going forward is that everything be included in one agreement, and then if there is no recommendation about any kind of discipline, that perhaps some additional language could be added to draft stipulations to kind of tighten it up, to make clear that, there won't be that final action, that final disposition includes any subsequent consideration of anything related to that particular.
Well, I think if we decide as a body that if we're going to make some recommendation that we just include it in the settlement.
Exactly.
Right, say that we are going to also send this letter and make it clear, then everybody is on notice as to what we.
And that if there is no such recommendation, that there will not be a subsequent recommendation.
Right. Yes.
I just wanted to point out, though, in terms of reading the regs for the commission, there's a particular section dedicated to stipulated orders specifically, and it's section, looks like 14B, which says that the stipulated order, so our stipulation, shall set forth the pertinent facts and may include an agreement as to anything that could be ordered by the commission under its authority pursuant to Charter Section C3, et cetera. And that section, in turn, talks about, I have it here, excuse me for a minute while I get it. So in other words, it seems like our regs contemplate that, whatever we can do under the charter provision is what would be included in that stipulation. And that is 9. Cease and desist the violation, file any required reports, statements, et cetera, pay a monetary penalty of up to $5,000 usually. And there is a provision here that says, with respect to city officers other than those identified in 8.107 of the charter, which is probably out of date, that reference, when the commission determines on the basis of substantial evidence that a violation has occurred, the commission may recommend the appointing officer that the officer at issue be removed from office. And that's it. So I guess without moving forward and having, just sort of looking at it right now, my one concern would be, to the extent there's additional language that's sort of outside the scope of what's provided for in the charter, it might not be allowed for under the regs. I don't know if the city attorney has kind of a question on that.
Well, it sounds like if there was a recommendation for termination, then that would be contemplated in the language you just read.
Well, only if somebody's, only with respect to particular city officers, and only with respect a recommendation to an appointing officer, and I'm not sure if that's a defined term or not. At any rate, it seems like it might be an issue for us to take a look at.
Sure. I mean, I still think that there was nothing that I'll look at it down the road.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any further comments?
Well, one of the concerns I had as I was listening to all the public comment was that we didn't have any hearings in leading up to this stipulated settlement. In other words, it was the FEPC, and as far as I know, there was little or no activity by the Ethics Commission and its staff to do a complete investigation.
I think we did investigate.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
we did our own investigation.
But there, I mean, in other words, that there was never any investigation as to how serious the offense was. I mean, we all react to the fact that it's a conflict of interest, but whether or not it rose to the level of that somebody should be fired because they committed a conflict of interest, I didn't feel I, as a commissioner, was in any position to do any value judgment on that. That was up to the agency to make that determination, absent some record that I had in front of me that would cause me to either think this woman should be fired or she shouldn't be fired. I mean, I think if we're going to make recommendations concerning what the agency should do, we've got to have a lot more information about and an understanding of what investigation the agency made and reached its determination. You know, her boss comes in and says, I think I took appropriate action. Can't tell us what it is, obviously, for it's a personnel matter. I don't know what he did, but he seemed his judgment, and then we listened to all his public comment about what a wonderful employee she is and a wonderful community leader. There's no way I would have been inclined to tell the PUC you ought to fire her.
Well, we did have more than Commissioner Rennie characterized in the stipulation. We had some rather egregious language in the violation itself, influencing a governmental decision in which the official has a financial benefit. I remember at the time when we were looking at that, myself, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Herr, who was next to me, we sort of had a visceral reaction to that and made some comments that were in the record. And in regard to the other language, prohibits any city officer or employee from making a contract in which he or she has a financial interest. It wasn't just some sort of generic thing, well, you know, she really didn't do it right. You know, this is fairly substantial language of a violation. Now, we heard all this other stuff, and in my opinion, it paled in regard to everything that we heard. But on the face of it, I looked at that and then looked at what we see is our mandate under our rules to promote the highest standards of ethical behavior in government, and I see a department which is allowing someone to continue in employment who has pled guilty to these two rather egregiously sounding offenses, and to me it seemed, based upon that knowledge, and that knowledge only, it was appropriate to say that she shouldn't continue. I've learned a lot more tonight, I have to tell you.
I mean, I think
that's the problem. That's the problem is that it comes to us with, sure, the quoting the statute, but even as you read the facts, what we knew about the facts, I certainly didn't feel it was a corruption case in the classic term of the word. That is some public employee who's taking money under the table or doing something else, and her conduct when it came up was certainly open and above and cooperative, and she's paying a fine for it. She's made a mistake. I agree with these people who say she's made a mistake, she fessed up to it, and go forward.
Commissioner Andrews?
Well, it sounds to me that in some ways, we're kind of doing our own temperature check on the Commission's comfort level with the city departments to internally deal with this personnel matter in some kind of disciplinary fashion. If we trust that there is a process, an internal process, and we trust that something would have happened, then we would, it seems to me we wouldn't be finding ourselves here so much. To believe that nothing happened, I would say yes. But we'll never know. We don't know. It sounds to me, it felt like the executive director was intimating that something happened or there was some disciplinary action. It was a personnel issue. I mean, he said all the right things in public around the fact that it's an HR issue. But the fact is we'll never know what actually that was. So we'll just always have to trust that disciplinary actions were taken if appropriate. So to me, it seems that that would be a logical and reasonable line item to add to a stipulation, that if appropriate, disciplinary action should be taken by the agency or the entity. I mean, it's vague enough, it would seem to me, that at least it brings to notice that the organization has a responsibility or the entity has a responsibility to investigate what they should do post the commission's decision.
And I think that's fine, and to include. I think to the extent that we want to provide a recommendation, I do think it should be done in the context of discussing the settlement, in which case, if, for example, we had determined, and I'm not saying there was or wasn't sufficient evidence to make this determination, but if we had determined that we thought we wanted to send a letter like that, then I think the procedure would have been the settlement would have been rejected. The commission would have had to, the staff would have had to gone back to Ms. Ellis, and if she rejected that part of if she rejected the settlement on that basis, then it would come to a hearing in front of us, and then we would hear all the evidence and make a determination. So as long as we make that decision in the context of approving the settlement, I think we are going to cover our bases and sort of do the right thing by due process.
And the only thing I would just add to that, and I think you're absolutely right, is, and that's why I said the word reasonable. It would be reasonable for, I mean, it would be almost seem unreasonable for the respondent to not want to sign off on, if appropriate, disciplinary action be taken, because what they're basically saying is, I get to violate it, and I don't think it's fair if I am disciplined on my violation. So it's well within not only what I consider just general reasoning among the commission, but certainly to any of the respondents who were in violation of any of these codes. That's where I wanted to see if we could find a middle ground here, where it would not be a kill switch on the stipulation, but at least have the violator on notice, the respondent on notice, and the entity on notice that something should be done.
Okay. Public comment on this matter?
And the commissioners, today is a very sad day, really, very sad day. So in the past, I participated when Kevin Williams, his case was brought before you all. Tony Hall, our Sheriff Rosmi Kurami, and now Juliet Ellis. In all your deliberations, you do know that y'all were a little bit slow because of whatever reason in adjudicating this case. This case really came from the Fair Political Practices Committee, which had a stipulation, and then just because it came from a higher authority, y'all kind of went with the flow, and y'all messed up big time. So, in the investigation, there are over 30 cases of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission having their employees infringe on ethics, morals, and standards. This woman, Juliet Ellis, chose and employed the wife of this director who hates Green for All. You all failed to do that investigation. You all failed miserably. You remember a president, Bill Clinton? I did not have sex with this woman, Monica Lewinsky, looking us all in the eye and not blinking. And yet we found out that he did. Juliet Ellis is a very, very arrogant person. She's been arrogant to me. And once, in this hallway, on a bench over there, I warned her many, many months ago to change her ways. Change your ways and be humble. She did not. Commissioners, today is a very, very sad day in the history of this commission that was charged to do right, to discern and to adjudicate based on morals, ethics, and standards. You failed miserably. Thank you very much.
Good evening again, Dr. Espinola Jackson. I would like to say, listen to your deliberations, is that I went to the commission, PUC commission. In fact, they will be in this very room tomorrow at 1:30, and I will be definitely on them. I stated to that commission that I would like for them to have their staff to cease and desist in what was going on in Bayview Hunters Point dealing with the sewage plant. And the commissioner called me back to the podium and said, Ms. Jackson, we don't have anything to do with the staff. We only deal with the director. I said, okay. But he said, I will be your conduit between this commission and you, Mrs. Jackson, because when I come to a commission meeting, I come with facts. What we are going through in Bayview Hunters Point, and what I see now that I will have to do, is request that the RICO Act be enforced here in San Francisco. You made a statement about corruption. This city is so corrupt, and it became corrupt from 96 up until now because of what is going on. And I've been watching. I'm 81 years of age, but I've been watching the politics of San Francisco for the last 55 years. I have walked these halls like I own them. But I want to make sure that at your next meeting, I'm finished with that, at your next meeting to the director, you the director, correct? When you go over the minutes, I've already talked to the attorney to make sure that he look up the responsibility of a chair. And before you make your motion to support the minutes that's going to be presented to you, you will have to make adjustments, because I don't want to see you in trouble on an action that you have taken. Because I have been chairman of many boards, and I've been on many commissions, and I had to learn Robert Rules of Order. So that's one thing that I do know well, what a chairman can do and cannot do. So I don't want no embarrassment on you all at all about your actions that you take. And I want you all to have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Dr. Derek Kerr. Several of the public speakers mentioned that Ms. Ellis had reported her error to you and to the FPPC, that she herself had done it. If so, that's commendable and should be taken into consideration. Usually, these types of wrongdoing come to you or the FPPC from a tip, from a whistleblower. And the wrongdoers who are exposed by whistleblowers instinctively try to ferret out who it is and to neutralize the threat. It's just a threat. So if this case came about through a whistleblower, I would be concerned about Ms. Ellis's return to her position because that would constitute a risk, a threat to the whistleblower, if there was one. Thank you.
So there's going to be no vote or action on number 5. So moving on to number 6, discussion and possible action on the minutes. I had one change I'd like to propose. On page 4 of 6, it states that I think it's suggesting that I seconded the motion relating to the closed session, and I don't think I did because I thought I recused myself for that item. Okay. I mean, you have me rejoining after that, so it's hard to see how I could have seconded. So, I think that should be changed. Any other?
I move that we adopt the minutes as amended.
Second.
Public comment? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next item, Executive Director's Report. So we get a very quick update.
Yeah, I'm going to make this very quick. The only thing I would draw your attention to is the chart attached to the ED report. You all may remember that the city is actively pursuing a single data site with all of the good information about San Francisco government and its work and all the information and data available from the various agencies. So a status report at a meeting held this week regarding this particular effort kind of shows you here that the Ethics Commission has really been quite a partner in this. The second one, undefined, reflects data that was posted by city employees who did not leave any identification as to who the poster was, so we have no idea where all that information is. So, obviously, as always, thanks to Stephen, our tech person, we're kind of out front on the making availability of data, which is always good for transparency. That's my only highlight.
Comments from the commissioners on the Executive Director's Report? Public comment? Seeing none. Items for future meetings? Any proposals at this time? Public comment on matters appearing do I need to take public comment on number 8?
Yes.
All right. Public comment, seeing none. Public comment on matters appearing or not appearing on the agenda. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.